Chapter 1. Pa! The basketball in Xiao Chen's hand was slapped away. What followed was a burst of cheers from the audience. However, the cheers were extremely harsh in Xiao Chen's ears. A block. This almost humiliating way of stealing the ball made Xiao Chen stare at Chen Jinpeng and gasp for breath. Inner force. Chen Jinpeng actually used inner force privately. Under normal circumstances, martial artists would not use inner force. If it was used in an ordinary friendly basketball match, what was the point? Unless the opponent took the initiative to provoke them, martial artists generally disdain to use inner force to bully others. Xiao Chen's face was gloomy as he looked at Chen Jinpeng, who passed by him and took the basketball away. He even forgot about his swollen palm. This was his former underling. How dare he use underhanded tricks on me in a basketball match? Beep! Accompanied by the whistle, there was another cheer outside the court. Chen Jinpeng had successfully shot the ball at the last moment. Inner force again. Only Xiao Chen could see that at such a long distance, with Chen Jinpeng's strength, he had to use inner force to shoot the ball successfully. Chen Jinpeng. You're good. Even though Xiao Chen's psychological quality was very strong, the consecutive blows still made his chest heave up and down. He was furious. What are you looking at? Do you still think you're the Xiao Chen from before? You've been kicked out of your family. Instead of finding a place to hide, you actually ran to the court to be abused. Do you really think you're a basketball god? If I hadn't been playing infernal affairs and bribed my teammates to deliberately lose to you, who do you think you are? Chen Jinpeng looked at Xiao Chen with ridicule. His gaze was high and mighty, as if he was looking at an ant. Fake? No wonder he lost so badly. I thought Xiao Chen was really a basketball god. It turned out to be fake. Xiao Chen's teammates seemed to understand something after listening to Chen Jinpeng's words and began to ridicule him. Scumbag, always playing fake. I was wondering why Xiao Chen's skills were so bad today. Chen Jinpeng intercepted the ball consecutively. He's really trash. If it were in the past, these people really wouldn't dare to do anything to Xiao Chen. Although Xiao Chen was currently studying in an aristocratic school and these people's families were also rich or noble, compared to the Xiao family, one of the four major families in Songning City, it was a world of difference. However, now that Xiao Chen had been kicked out of the Xiao family and was a thorn in the side of the Qing family, the head of the four major families, these people followed suit regardless of whether what Chen Jinpeng said was true or false. Xiao Chen looked coldly at the people on the court, but he had nothing to say. Should I tell them that Chen Jinpeng's skills were actually not as good as mine and that he could only win because he used inner force? But who would believe it? How many of these people knew about inner force? Even if they knew, who could stand up for him at this moment? He was no longer the young master of the Xiao family, the son of the young master of the Xiao family. The younger brother of the past had stepped on his head. Xiao Chen shook his head. Why? Why was he still kicked out of the Xiao family? Was it because he couldn't practice inner force? But who could see the hard work that Xiao Chen had put in all these years since he was young? Xiao Chen was the only son of the young master of the Xiao family, Xiaofan. But because of his physique, he couldn't practice inner force. All these years, Xiao Chen had withstood huge pressure. The successors of the four major families were all outstanding martial artists. Only martial artists could suppress the heroes and push a family to a higher level. In front of others, Xiao Chen had no choice but to act like a hedonistic young master, spending money like it was dirt. Only by doing so could he protect himself. A useless successor was something that the other three major clans and 5 minor clans would be happy to see. Without the ability to protect himself, he had to make others think that he was harmless to them. When he was young, he practiced hard every day for more than 10 years. Every night when it was quiet, the sound of training could be heard in the basement of the Xiao family's Xiao Chen room. However, Xiao Chen's hard work didn't get rewarded by the heavens. His father went missing, he was kicked out of the family, and the Cheng family broke off the engagement. And he was still a good-for-nothing who couldn't protect himself. Xiaochen took a deep breath. No matter whether he acted harmless in the past or not, at this moment, the old master of the Cheng family hated him. There were many people who threw stones at him when he was down. The basketball game ended, and the people around him had already dispersed. The people who supported the Chen family surrounded Chen Jinpeng and went to celebrate together. Xiaochen. A nervous but pleasant voice appeared in front of Xiaochen, accompanied by a beautiful figure. This was a young girl wearing a school uniform that was unusually plain, but all of this could not conceal her natural beauty. Lin. Xiaochen looked at the girl in front of him, who was known as the commoner campus belle. Of course, she was also the target of Xiaochen's pursuit and harassment in the past. Actually, speaking of which, Xiaochen could be considered as Lin Ke's savior. Lin Ke had been harassed by some ruffians in the alleyway behind the school, and coincidentally, Xiaochen, who was passing by, had seen it. Thus, he had instructed Chen Jinpeng to beat up those ruffians, and thus, the scene of a hero saving the damsel in distress had played out. Originally, Lin was very grateful to Xiaochen, but she didn't expect that the next day, Xiaochen began to pursue Lin at school. Love letters and roses made Lin, who only wanted to study hard, collapse. Therefore, she could only hide from Xiaochen. Fortunately, Xiaochen was only pretending to be a playboy, so he didn't do anything too excessive. However, when Lin took the initiative to look for him, it still made Xiaochen a little surprised. I heard that you were expelled from your family, and your engagement was broken off. Lin's face was flushed. She stuttered, and her breathing was a little rushed. But, don't be sad and give up on yourself. You work hard now, study hard, and you can still be successful in the future, then, I can let you chase me. After saying this, Lin seemed to have exhausted all the strength in her body. Her forehead was also sweating, and her delicate face was full of redness. She lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Xiaochen again. She turned around and ran away quickly, looking at Lin who was far away. Xiaochen couldn't help but smile bitterly. While sighing at Lin's naivety and kindness, he couldn't help but sigh. All these years, did I pretend to be a playboy quite well? Did she think that I would take things too hard because of this? However, what Xiaochen didn't know was that in the school, there was already a small-scale rumor spreading. And Lin heard this rumor, so she plucked up the courage to look for Xiaochen. To the simple and honest Lin Ke, how much courage did she have to expend to say such words? Chapter 2. Xiaochen touched his hungry stomach due to the strenuous exercise. He wanted to go to the school cafeteria to eat something, but Xiaochen stopped as soon as he took a step. The food in the school cafeteria was more expensive. Xiaochen was no longer the young master of the Xiao family. His bank card was frozen, and his sports car was driven away by the family. Xiaochen's ears were still echoing with what his second uncle said at noon. You're no longer a member of the Xiao family. You've been kicked out of the Xiao family. Everything in the Xiao family no longer belongs to you. Are these words said by my own second uncle? Even if I've been kicked out of the Xiao family, there's no need to be so ruthless, right? At this moment, Xiaochen seemed to understand something. Is this the so-called big family has no kinship? However, Xiaochen didn't expect that this scene would appear in the Xiao family. He turned around and walked to the row of food stalls in front of the school gate. In the past, Xiaochen disdained to come here to eat. The school's high-class restaurant was comparable to the culinary skills of a five-star hotel. Of course, the price was not cheap. It was just that the previous Xiaochen had no concept of money. Classmate, what do you want to eat? The owner of the food stall greeted Xiaochen enthusiastically. However, even if he was enthusiastic, Xiaochen was confused by the dazzling fast food names in front of him. He had never eaten these strange things before. What is barbecued meat mixed with rice? Isn't barbecued meat a Western cuisine? How can it be mixed with rice? I'll have seafood fried noodles. Xiao Chun could only choose a food that looked familiar. Okay, wait a moment. It'll be ready soon. The owner responded and called the chef behind him to start working. Soon, the fried noodles were served. Xiao Chun looked at the strange seafood fried noodles in front of him. The so-called seafood was just a few small pieces of shredded squid scattered on the noodles. This made Xiao Chun feel like he didn't know where to start. However, the taste seemed to be good. The hungry Xiao Chun couldn't care less. He picked up the chopsticks and began to stuff food into his mouth. Moreover, Xiao Chun was not really a playboy. It was just that he did not have the opportunity to eat these things in the past. Huh? Isn't this Xiao Chun? Why did you come to this roadside stall to eat? Is this the bad taste of rich people? An ear-piercing voice was heard. This voice was somewhat familiar. Xiao Chun immediately recognized it as Chao Yuliang's voice. Just like Xiao Chen and Chen Jinpeng, Chao Yuliang was a disciple of the 4 big families and 5 small families of Songning City. However, the Chao family and the Xiao family had always been at odds with each other, causing Chao Yuliang and Xiao Chen to often be at loggerheads with each other. However, Chao Yuliang was the same as Xiao Chen, a good-for-nothing young master who couldn't cultivate inner strength. After looking at Chao Yuliang coldly, Xiao Chen stood up and asked, "Boss, how much is it?" A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. Xiao Chen was kicked out of the family. Naturally, he didn't want to argue with Chao Yuliang anymore. Moreover, the purpose of Chao Yuliang coming here was probably to provoke him and humiliate him. Naturally, Xiao Chen wouldn't let him succeed. Seafood fried noodles, 10 yuan. The boss said. Okay. Xiao Chen reached for his wallet, but when his hand touched his pocket, his face suddenly changed. My wallet is gone. Did I lose it when I was playing basketball just now? Ha! Why? Xiao Chen doesn't want to pay. Could it be that he is here to eat and dash? But it's no wonder. In the past, Chen Jinpeng paid the bill. Why don't I help you call him? Chao Yuliang looked at Xiao Chen playfully and pretended to take out his phone. Young Master Chao, Xiao Chen wants to swipe his card. With Xiao Chen's identity, how can he bring cash when he goes out? One of Chao Yuliang's followers said. Yeah, but unfortunately, Xiao Chen, you can't swipe your diamond credit card here. Another follower said. Boss. I lost my wallet. Can I give it to you next time? Xiao Chen took a deep breath and warned himself in his heart. When a tiger falls to the plains, he will be bullied by dogs. Just ignore them. The boss saw Xiao Chen's embarrassed look. It seemed that he really had a difficult situation. His clothes didn't look like a person who cheated others to eat and drink. He thought that he didn't have much money anyway, so he said, "It's okay. I will give it to you next time." Boss, you can't do this. You are a scumbag who connives to eat and dash. Look at this brat, he's dressed like a dog. One look and I know he's a swindler. Chao Yuliang blocked Xiao Chen's path. Yeah, boss. You can't condone this kind of person who eats and dashes. Think about it. If he doesn't pay for the meal, then we also say that we didn't bring money after the meal. Does it mean that we don't have to pay? Do you still want to do your business? Chao Yuliang's followers also echoed. This. The boss hesitated after hearing Chao Yuliang and his followers' words. These people were obviously looking for trouble. If he really let Xiao Chen go, then they would probably have to eat a meal without paying. Then, his business for the day would be in vain. Boss, I will pay his bill. A cold voice sounded. This voice made Xiao Chen's body tremble. It was Cheng Menjiang, the eldest daughter of the Cheng family, the head of Songning's 4 major aristocratic families and 5 small aristocratic families. However, she also had another identity, which was Xiao Chen's fiancée. It should be said that she was his ex-fiancée. Menjing, although he used to be your fiancé, he has been kicked out of the Xiao family. How can you pay for him? Zhao Yuliang's face changed slightly. He didn't expect Cheng Menjing to cause trouble at this time. As Cheng Menjing's pursuer, this wasn't what he wanted to see. Of course, I'm not asking you to be unsympathetic, but if your Cheng family knows about this, Grandpa Cheng will definitely. Cheng Menjing didn't care about Zhao Yuliang at all. She took out a 100 yuan bill from her wallet and handed it to the boss. The boss didn't dare to say anything. He took the money. When he was about to give the change, he found that Cheng Menjing had turned around and left. Just give me the change, Yi Zichen said. Xiao Chen glanced at Cheng Menjing's back with a complicated expression. He shook his head self-deprecatingly. At this time, he didn't care about Xiao Chen's self-esteem. No one treated him as Xiao Chen. He was just a target of ridicule. Then, what else did he have to pretend to be? After removing the previous disguise, Xiao Chen was too lazy to pretend to Zhao Yuliang. Okay. The boss didn't think much about it. He directly handed the 90 yuan that he got back to Xiao Chen. Ha ha ha, you really can't be helped. You even want a woman's money? Xiao Chen, you are hopeless. If I were you, I would rather die. Zhao Yuliang's voice was very loud. Perhaps he wanted to deliberately let Cheng Menjing hear it. However, Cheng Menjing's footsteps were light. She didn't stop at all, as if she didn't hear it. Xiao Chen looked at Zhao Yuliang coldly. If you want to eat, sit down and eat. If you don't want to eat, get out of the way. A good dog doesn't block the way. What did you say? One of Zhao Yuliang's underlings jumped out and pointed at Xiao Chen. He was about to make a move. Forget it. There's no point in beating a drowning dog. Let him get lost. Zhao Yuliang waved his hand and took the lead to sit at a table on the side. He said, "Boss, give me a beef rice." His underlings also looked at Xiao Chen with disdain. Then, they sat beside Zhao Yuliang. Xiao Chen had to admit that Zhao Yuliang was better than him in some aspects. At least he knew what the store's food was. Looking at Xiao Chen's back as he left, Zhao Yuliang's eyes flashed with a hint of ruthlessness. However, it was quickly concealed. Fight with me? Let's see how you can fight with me now. Chapter 3. Out of the food stall, Xiao Chen's face showed a trace of confusion. Originally, Xiao Chen thought that even if his efforts were not rewarded, he would still be the heir of the Xiao family. As long as he and Cheng Menjing got married and had children, the children would be able to embark on the path of martial arts cultivation, and the Xiao family would not be considered as broken. After all, the lifespan of a martial artist was very long, and Xiao Chen's father, Xiaofan, was a rare genius among the younger generation. When his grandson grew up, he could still wait. Therefore, after Xiao Chen had a plan, he began to disguise himself as an ignorant and incompetent playboy, flirting with girls, fighting for wealth, and indulging in debauchery. Except for the people within the Xiao family, Xiao Chen succeeded in deceiving everyone. No one would have thought that Xiao Chen would be a madman who forced himself to cultivate for more than 10 years. However, unexpectedly, his father suddenly disappeared without a trace, and Cheng Menjing's uncle, the most promising member of the younger generation of the Cheng family, also disappeared in the trial team led by his father. News came from the outside world that Xiao Chen's father, Xiaofan, had caused the entire trial team to perish due to a mistake in decision-making, burying the lives of the entire trial team. Old Master Cheng was furious, and under the pressure of the Xiao family, Xiao Chen was driven out of the family in confusion. The Cheng family was an ancient martial arts family, the head of the 4 big and 5 small families in Songning City. In the entire northwest region, they were one of the best. Of course, there were only a few ancient martial arts families in the entire Xia kingdom. These families, in the local areas, were transcendent existences, established by martial arts, and passed down for hundreds of years. As for families like the Xiao family, the Chen family, and the Chao family, they had only risen in the past few decades. Although they also practiced martial arts, their heritage could not be compared to the Cheng family. There were a total of 9 families in Songning City, but the rankings were not fixed. The families would be re-ranked according to the comprehensive strength of each family in a regular family meeting. However, other families would have more or less changes, but the Cheng family had never changed. Therefore, being able to unite with the Cheng family by marriage meant that a family would soar. The Xiao family wanted it, so did the Chao family. However, because Xiao Chen's father, Xiaofan, and Cheng Menjing's father, Cheng Zhenfei, grew up together and studied under the same master, the engagement between Xiao Chen and Cheng Menjing was set early. "Little brother, do you want to take a taxi?" While Xiao Chen was hesitating, a taxi stopped beside Xiao Chen. The driver probably saw Xiao Chen standing on the street like a fool, so he thought he was waiting for a taxi. Xiao Chen was slightly stunned, but he still nodded. With his current mood, he did not want to continue to stay in school. Staying in school would only lead to more ridicule. Xiao Chen also wanted to be alone and think about his future. Without his family and father, Xiao Chen had to replan his life. Just find a quiet place. Xiao Chen opened the door and got in the car. A quiet place? Little brother, do you have something on your mind? The taxi driver was stunned and asked. Well, just find a place without people. Xiao Chen did not want to talk much, so he just nodded. The taxi driver did not ask anything more. He started the car and left the food stall. What Xiao Chen did not know was that shortly after the taxi left, a black Audi car followed. However, the model of the Audi was A6L, which was relatively ordinary. If one did not have professional anti-reconnaissance abilities, it would be impossible to discover it. The taxi stopped at the Songlong mountain cliff mouth. This was a tourist attraction that had not been developed yet. After being bought by a company, it was going to be developed in the next 2 years, but now it was a deserted place. In the summer, there were couples who came here to have an affair, but now it was autumn. The cliff mouth was very windy, so it was deserted. However, this place was just right for Xiao Chen. He could calm down and feel the cold wind to clear his mind. There were too many things that happened today. He was kicked out of the family. Before he could think too much about it, he had to participate in the previously agreed friendly basketball match. Xiao Chen paid the taxi fare and sat on the edge of the cliff mouth. He looked at the bottomless cliff and fell into deep thought. What should I do in the future? Without internal energy, Xiao Chen was no different from an ordinary person. Even when he was kicked out of the Xiao family, he was even worse than an ordinary person. It turned out that I was indeed a useless young master. In the past, Xiao Chen thought that he was very smart and had deceived everyone. But now, after losing everything, Xiao Chen realized that he was just a little smart. Just as Xiao Chen fell into deep thought, suddenly, someone kicked Xiao Chen's back. F***ck. Xiao Chen cursed. His body flew directly off the cliff. Who the F***ck is so wicked? The whistling wind in his ears and the bottomless cliff made Xiao Chen's forehead instantly break out in a cold sweat. Am I going to die? Xiao Chen's eyes flashed a hint of unwillingness. Who is it that wants to kill me? The person who pushed me had internal energy. Xiao Chen could feel this. If the other party didn't use internal energy, Xiao Chen wouldn't have fallen off the cliff so easily. The place where he was sitting was more than 2 meters away from the cliff. An ordinary person could only push him a little, but it was impossible to push him off the cliff. Although Xiao Chen didn't have internal energy all these years, his body was much stronger than ordinary people. After all, this was the result of training every night. However, these had become meaningless. Looking at the bottom of the cliff that was getting closer and closer, Xiaochen closed his eyes helplessly. Boom, a loud noise sounded. Xiaochen only felt that his internal organs were about to be shattered. Then, he lost consciousness. After an unknown period of time, suddenly, there was a sound that made Xiaochen's hair stand on end. This was because this sound didn't come from Xiaochen's ears, but from Xiaochen's head. Wake up, wake up. This voice seemed to be circling in Xiaochen's head. Xiaochen was shocked and jumped up subconsciously. Who is it? Xiaochen even forgot that he fell from the cliff. He didn't have time to think about why he didn't fall to his death. Instead, he looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. It's me. The somewhat old voice sounded again. Xiaochen's face suddenly showed a horrified expression. Although Xiaochen wasn't a timid person, as a person who practiced martial arts, he didn't know how many dead people he had seen. However, the scene in front of him had already exceeded the normal worry. You? Who are you? Where are you? Xiaochen asked in a hurry. I'm in your body. The voice said word by word. You? Are you kidding? Xiaochen said subconsciously. However, he still lowered his head and looked at his body to see if there was anything strange. Do you think I look like I'm joking? I'm a soul, and I'm now in your body. The voice said indifferently. Soul? My body? Possession. Possession? After Xiaochen spat out the word possession, his face turned ashen. Chapter 4. Xiaochen couldn't help but be afraid. Although he hadn't experienced possession, he had more or less heard of it. Now that a soul had entered his body, if it wasn't for possession, then what was it? Possession? The voice was slightly stunned, and then it laughed with some disdain. That's a method used by the devil's sect. A body that is possessed is not the most suitable. It will cause a lot of trouble in the future. I'm just an independent existence that resides in your body. Phew. Xiaochen breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that this soul really wasn't going to possess him. Otherwise, why would it explain so much about possession? Moreover, after Xiaochen calmed down, he realized that he still had independent consciousness. So he took a deep breath and asked, Then who are you, soul? Why did you choose to reside in my body? It's meaningless for you to know who I am for the time being. As for why I am residing in your body, it's because your physique is very similar to mine. When you jumped off the cliff, it happened to touch my soul, so I am residing in your body. The voice explained faintly. F***ck, physique is similar. You still want to possess me? Xiaochen was shocked and said angrily. However, he sighed sorrowfully. I, Xiaochen, didn't die after falling off the cliff, but am I going to be possessed and die? Xiaochen, don't be agitated. The voice sounded again, but this time with a somewhat funny tone. You didn't die after jumping off the cliff. You have to thank me. If I didn't enter your body in mid-air, you would have fallen into a meat patty by now. You. How do you know my name? You can read minds? Xiaochen was shocked and asked. Don't forget that I'm in your body. You can communicate with me as long as you think about it in your mind. There's no need to say it out loud. The voice continued, As for possession, I'm really not interested. Although your body is very similar to mine, it's only similar. Moreover, after I possess you, I might lose my own thoughts, or in other words, our thoughts will merge and become a new person, so that's how it is. In that case, thank you for saving my life. For some reason, perhaps because this soul was also in Xiaochen's body, his words made Xiaochen feel particularly sincere, as if he was not lying to him. There's no need to thank me for saving your life. I didn't save you for nothing. That voice did not care about Xiaochen's gratitude. I saved you for myself. I have some unfulfilled wishes when I was alive, and I want you to help me fulfill them. Why? Xiao Chen's heart stirred. Sure enough, there was something going on. I knew it. You wouldn't be so kind as to save me. It turns out that you already had a plan. Oh, your father went missing, you were chased out of the family, your fiancé broke off the engagement, and you were bullied by your former lackey, TSK, it seems like you've had quite a miserable life. The voice suddenly said with a mocking tone. Holy shit! You old bastard, you peeped at my privacy. Xiao Chen was completely enraged. He had an urge to hit someone, but if he raised his fist, who would he hit? Was he going to hit himself? Wasn't that a moron? I was just casually looking. Don't worry, I don't have any bad interests. I just looked at my recent memories. The voice said indifferently, however, you have such a good physique. You were actually bullied like this. TSK, it's really sad. Old thing, what are you trying to say? Xiao Chen was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he couldn't do anything to this soul. He was in his own body, so he couldn't hit him. Scolding him, it seemed that this old thing was thick-skinned. Even if he scolded him, he wouldn't react. Do you want to become stronger? The voice put away the previous mockery and asked temptingly. After Xiao Chen scolded him, he suddenly thought of the soul's words, such a good physique? Could it be that my physique is a good physique in his eyes? Xiao Chen wasn't stupid. Thinking of this, he asked tentatively, do you have a way to cultivate inner strength? No. The voice said very straightforwardly. Xiao Chen had an urge to go berserk. If not, why do you ask this? But, maybe there is an alternative? One can still become a powerhouse without cultivating inner strength? The voice answered his own question. You mean, you have other cultivation methods, but they can achieve the same effect as inner strength? Xiao Chen was slightly stunned and asked quickly. That's right. The voice said affirmatively, otherwise, how can I let you help me fulfill my wish? Just based on your skills? Okay. As long as you can make me stronger, in exchange, I can help you fulfill your wish. Xiao Chen hesitated slightly and made a decision. He said affirmatively, but let me say this first. If you want me to do something dangerous, I won't do it. That's not up to you. My first wish is to not accept a disciple before I die. Xiao Chen, kowtow and acknowledge me as your master first. The voice laughed and was full of wretchedness. Acknowledge me as your master? Xiao Chen was stunned and immediately understood that he was tricked. I want to acknowledge you as my master. You are my master. Whatever you want me to do, I have to do it. How is this an exchange? When did I say it was an exchange? You said it yourself. The voice said, besides, one of my wishes is to accept a disciple. You. Xiao Chen's eyes widened. He was stunned and didn't know what to say. Well, to be honest, you are my disciple and the only successor of my bloodline. How can I let you push you into the fire pit? If you acknowledge me as your master, there are only benefits and no disadvantages. The voice laughed. Okay, then I agree. Xiao Chen thought about it. In fact, he had no other choice. If he wanted to become stronger, relying on this soul was the only choice. He hadn't cultivated inner strength for more than 10 years. If there were other ways, he would have used them long ago. Okay, but I don't want to acknowledge you as my master first. Now that I can't come out of your body, you can't worship yourself. The voice was very satisfied with Xiao Chen's agreement. You can call me Master or Elder Heaven Ancestor in the future. Master, what should I do now? This cliff. How do I go back? Since Xiao Chen had accepted Elder Heaven Ancestor as his master, he naturally didn't have to worry about it. Go back, no hurry. Elder Heaven Ancestor said, it's been too long. The spiritual sense in my soul is very weak. I can temporarily replace your body and fly up the cliff, but that will use up all my remaining spiritual sense. After that, I will enter a dormant state. Chapter 5. Then what should I do if you go dormant? Xiaofan was taken aback. However, he was secretly surprised. He could actually fly up the cliff? How high was this cliff? According to Xiaofan's understanding, even if his father was a level 7 inner force expert, it would still be impossible for him to do this. It seemed that this master of his was really a powerful expert. It seemed that he hadn't recognized him in vain. Cultivate according to the method I taught you. The primordial qi that you cultivate, or what you call true qi, can replenish my soul and mental strength. The elder heaven ancestor said, "Don't worry, I will wake up soon." However, this replenishment process is relatively slow. When you become a real cultivator and step into the threshold of the first level of the refinement stage, I will wake up. However, it is easy for me to wake up, but it is difficult for me to help you with this kind of thing again. Then how do I cultivate? Xiaofan was confused and asked, also, what is primordial qi? The inner force that you mentioned is something that warriors cultivate, and primordial qi is something that we cultivators cultivate. The two are similar, but different. Most people can cultivate to become warriors, but it is not the case for cultivators. You must have spiritual roots in your body to cultivate. The elder heaven ancestor said, warriors train their bodies, and cultivators train qi. I will teach you the mantra of qi training. You just need to cultivate according to the method written above. Although the elder heaven ancestor's words sounded simple, Xiaofan was extremely shocked. Cultivators? There are actually cultivators in existence? This was the first time he heard of this concept. However, thinking about it, with the Xiao family's heritage, it was normal that he didn't know about this. After all, the elder heaven ancestor also said that cultivators must have spiritual roots, which was rare. Yes, master. Xiaofan was shocked and said respectfully. Although the elder heaven ancestor didn't say anything, Xiaofan suddenly felt as if something had intruded into his mind. In an instant, a large set of mantra mnemonics and cultivation methods appeared in Xiaofan's mind. Alright, I'm going to temporarily take over your body. As soon as the elder heaven ancestor finished speaking, Xiaofan was shocked to find that his body was no longer under his control. However, in addition to not being able to control his own body, Xiaofan discovered that he still had his own consciousness. In other words, he could think and see everything in front of him, but he couldn't control his own body. Elder heaven ancestor, is that you? Xiaofan asked in his mind. It's me. Your body is too weak. This will consume a lot of my soul force. Kid, you really know how to cause trouble for me. Such a high cliff, it's killing me. The elder heaven ancestor's words came out of Xiaofan's mouth. This tone was indescribably strange and awkward. If I didn't fall down, would you be able to enter my body? Xiaofan thought angrily. Hee, that's true. The elder heaven ancestor said, back then, I was seriously injured and chased here. I fell off the cliff. I didn't expect that you, kid, were also thrown off the cliff. Master, seriously injured you and thrown off the cliff? What kind of expert is that? Xiaofan was a little surprised. Just when I was injured. Let's not talk about this. It's been so long, I've almost forgotten about it. As the elder heaven ancestor said this, he suddenly took a deep breath and leaped. The whole body of Xiaofan actually flew straight up from the bottom of the cliff. Xiaofan looked at himself in amazement. What kind of martial arts was this? Could it be that cultivators were so much stronger than warriors? Or could it be that warriors could also be like this? Was it just that he didn't know? There are thousands of paths, but they all lead to the same destination. As Xiaofan was thinking about this, the elder heaven ancestor explained to him, don't underestimate warriors. Back then, the person who knocked me off the cliff was a warrior. Hiss, Xiaochen's feeling of being a cultivator was extinguished by the elder heaven ancestor with a basin of water. Of course, if I wasn't injured, killing him would be a piece of cake. Immediately after, the words of the elder heaven ancestor made Xiaochen not know whether to laugh or cry. After the elder heaven ancestor said this, Xiaochen's feet landed firmly on the cliff. Immediately after, Xiaochen found that he had regained control of his body. He could freely move his body. Master, you're really amazing. You actually managed to come up from such a high cliff. Xiaochen really couldn't imagine that he had actually jumped up by himself. However, this time, the answer to Xiaochen was silence. Master? Xiaochen called out again. However, the answer to him was still silence. Xiaochen was slightly stunned. Only then did he remember what the elder heaven ancestor had said before. When he jumped up the cliff, his soul power would be exhausted and he would enter a dormant state. Only by cultivating his own vitality would he be able to replenish his energy and wake him up. Thinking of this, Xiaochen secretly made up his mind that he must achieve results in his cultivation as soon as possible. Standing on the cliff again, Xiaochen's thoughts were completely different from a few hours ago. A few hours ago, Xiaochen was dispirited and confused. He didn't know what to do in the future. However, a few hours later, Xiaochen was high-spirited and full of fighting spirit. However, when Xiaochen quickly ran down the cliff, he found something extremely depressing. Damn, there was actually no taxi here. Chapter 6. Have you heard? The good-for-nothing young master of the Xiao family committed suicide by jumping off a cliff. The news spread very fast on campus. At this moment, people who knew Xiaochen were talking about Xiaochen's affairs in groups of 3 or 5. You heard it too? Student B said after listening, "Hey, if it were me, I would also commit suicide." He was driven out of the family, and the engagement was broken off by the Cheng family. He was also exposed in the basketball game that he spent money to fix the game. Who can bear such a blow? Yes, Xiaochen without the protection of his family is trash. No, he is worse than trash. Student C was the type of person who envied and hated the former Xiaochen. So at this moment, when he heard that Xiaochen was dead, he couldn't wait to curse more. Xiaochen committed suicide? As soon as Kerlin entered the classroom, she heard the students talking about Xiaochen. Listening carefully, it turned out to be the news of Xiaochen's suicide. Kerlin was shocked at that time, and her pretty face suddenly became pale. Yes, yes. One of Lin Ke's admirers did not notice her expression, and instead said to Lin Ke with a beaming smile, "Ke, now that bastard Xiaochen is dead, you won't be harassed by him anymore, and you've also regained your freedom, otherwise no one would have dared to pursue you in the past." This admirer's name was Du Xiaonan. He was the young master of a medium-sized family. Usually, he had a sense of superiority, but when he met Xiaochen, he could only walk around, so he felt suffocated. In the past, when Xiaochen was there, Kerlin simply became Xiaochen's private property. Even if he couldn't pursue her, he couldn't allow others to touch her. Who said that? Kerlin looked at Du Xiaonan in disbelief. She did not expect that Xiaochen would commit suicide. Didn't she just enlighten him a few hours ago? How could he? I heard it was said by a taxi driver who sent him to the cliff. Du Xiaonan had only heard about it from someone else, but he really hoped that Xiaochen would die, so he told Kerlin about what he had heard, adding oil to the fire. After Xiaochen lost the basketball match, he went to the snack bar to eat, but he found that he didn't bring any money. In the end, Cheng Menjing had to pay for him. Xiaochen's self-esteem probably suffered a great blow, so he hailed a taxi at the school gate and went to Songlong Mountain cliff mouth. In the end, the taxi driver watched as Xiaochen jumped off the cliff. Du Xiaonan saw that Kerlin was trembling and her emotions were fluctuating. He thought that she was too happy because of Xiao Chen's death, so he didn't care. When Lin heard Du Xiaonan's words, her mind suddenly went blank. It was not that she didn't care, but she cared very much. In fact, she didn't hate Xiao Chen. On the contrary, she had always been secretly grateful to Xiao Chen for saving her. Although Xiao Chen had been pestering her afterward, he had never done anything excessive to embarrass her. This was his savior. Why couldn't he just let it go? Lin really couldn't figure it out. Even if he wasn't the young master of the Xiao family, couldn't he still get ahead through his own efforts? Lin, why aren't you talking? Aren't you too happy? After Du Xiaonan finished talking about Xiao Chen, he thought that Lin would be happy to chat with him for a while. However, he didn't expect that Lin returned to her own seat in a daze. She leaned on the table and didn't know what she was doing. Lin was crying. She really couldn't accept this fact. It wasn't that she liked Xiao Chen. It was just that she thought that Xiao Chen was a good person. I say, Du Xiaonan, is what you said true? Before Du Xiaonan could figure out what happened to Lin, another curious classmate came over and asked. Of course, it's true. The taxi driver is soliciting customers at the gate of our school. He is here every day. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Du Xiaonan said confidently as if he had seen it with his own eyes. Naturally, Cheng Menjing had also heard the news. However, her first reaction was not to follow the crowd's opinion like the others. Instead, she began to doubt the source of the news. Even if Xiao Chen had committed suicide, who had sent the news back? Moreover, a taxi driver, even if he sent Xiao Chen to the Songlong mountain cliff mouth, would he still wait for Xiao Chen to walk up the cliff step by step and then leave? It wasn't a tourist attraction. There were no customers at all. Cheng Menjing didn't believe that the taxi driver was so idle. Of course, whether all this was true or false, it had little to do with Cheng Menjing. Cheng Menjing didn't like Xiao Chen. This was a playboy who didn't have much ability, but relied on the power of his family to do whatever he wanted outside. Xiao Chen didn't put his fiancée in his eyes at all. He pursued her sister in front of her, and recently launched an attack on the commoner campus belle. Even if Cheng Menjing didn't like Xiao Chen, she wouldn't feel comfortable seeing this. Menjing, are you thinking about Xiao Chen? The one who spoke was Cheng Menjing's best friend, Shen Jingxian. She was also one of the beautiful girls that Xiao Chen once harassed. Shen Jingxian didn't belong to the 4 big families or the 5 small families. Instead, she came from a mysterious family. She was also the target of many young masters in Songning City. However, Shen Jingxian was different from Cheng Menjing's cold personality. She was very kind to everyone, always making people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. What do you want him to do? Cheng Menjing naturally wouldn't admit it. Jingxian, you, on the other hand, have one less pursuer. It will be less troublesome in the future. I hope the rumors are false. Xiao Chen is already unlucky enough. Shen Jingxian didn't care about the pursuer. Instead, she really seemed to care about Xiao Chen. However, she was very kind to everyone. This was her personality, not because she had any special thoughts about Xiao Chen. Cheng Menjing knew Shen Jingxuan's personality. She shrugged. To be honest, she didn't want Xiao Chen to die like this. Although Cheng Menjing had always rejected the marriage between her and Xiao Chen, as Shen Jingxian said, Xiao Chen was already unlucky enough. If it weren't for her grandfather, Xiao Chen wouldn't be so down and out. Therefore, Cheng Menjing always felt that she owed Xiao Chen. But thinking about it, when did he put her, his fiancée, in his eyes? Shaking her head, Cheng Menjing flipped through the book and didn't think about these things for the time being. When Xiao Chen ran back to school, it was already time for school to end. It was more than 20 kilometers. Xiao Chen ran back in one breath. Fortunately, although he didn't cultivate internal energy, his body was extremely strong every night. Otherwise, he would really run to death. Of course, he could still hail a taxi if he was halfway there. However, he had used up more than half of the 90 yuan he had paid for the taxi. Xiaochen didn't want to spend the rest of the money so easily. He was in urgent need of money right now. Walking into the school, what Xiaochen didn't expect was that he actually met Chen Jinpeng. Chapter 7. However, Xiaochen didn't have the intention to greet him. Now, Xiaochen wanted to return to the dormitory as soon as possible, and then practice according to the mantra imprinted in his mind by the elder heaven ancestor. Strength, this was what Xiaochen longed for all the time since he was a child. Now that it was right in front of him, how could he not be anxious? However, Xiaochen didn't want to talk to Chen Jinpeng. However, when Chen Jinpeng saw Xiaochen, his eyes widened in horror, as if he had seen a ghost. He pointed at Xiaochen and said, You. Aren't you dead? Xiaochen was shocked in his heart, but on the surface, he looked at Chen Jinpeng calmly and said angrily, Chen Jinpeng, is there something wrong with your brain? You are the one who is dead. The matter of Xiaochen being pushed off the cliff, only Xiaochen himself and the person who did it behind the scenes knew. Could this person be Chen Jinpeng? However, Chen Jinpeng's inner force didn't seem to have such a high level of strength, right? Could it be that Chen Jinpeng also hid his strength? Xiaochen wasn't stupid. From his father's disappearance to him being kicked out of the Xiao family, then being broken off the engagement, being murdered, and being pushed off the cliff, it seemed that there was an invisible hand behind all of this. If so many things were coincidences, then it was too much of a coincidence. However, to figure out all of this and find out who wanted to harm him behind the scenes, Xiaochen must have the strength. Before he had the strength, he must continue to maintain his previous image, arrogant and easily angered, but he couldn't go too far. Chen Jinpeng didn't care that Xiaochen scolded him, but he was still extremely shocked in his heart. The rumor that Xiaochen committed suicide by jumping off the cliff had spread in the school, so when Chen Jinpeng saw Xiaochen appearing in front of him, he was really shocked. However, after confirming that Xiaochen was a person and not a ghost, Chen Jinpeng sneered and said, You are lucky that you didn't die. At this time, Chao Yuliang came over. When he saw Xiaochen, his eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. Xiaochen, a taxi driver said that you went to Songlong Mountain Cliff Mouth to commit suicide. It seems that the rumor is false. Brother Liang. Chen Jinpeng had now followed the new boss and switched to the underling of Xiaochen's former opponent. Xiaochen just pretended to be pretentious in front of me and said that I was sick in the head. Brother Liang, why don't we beat him up? Forget it. There are many students in school now. Chao Yuliang waved his hand. Of course, it wasn't because there were many students after school, but because Chao Yuliang saw Cheng Menjing, Miss Cheng, walking over. Menjing. Chao Yuliang now had a sense of superiority in his heart. Cheng Menjing and Xiaochen had broken off the engagement, so he could pursue Cheng Menjing justifiably. Cheng Menjing ignored Chao Yuliang. She saw Xiaochen standing here, so she walked over. To be honest, Cheng Menjing didn't know what kind of mentality she had. Did she care about Xiaochen? In the past, when Xiaochen pursued Ke Lin and Shen Jingxian in front of her, Cheng Menjing wanted to strangle him. I am your fiancé after all. Have you ever given me face? However, Xiaochen was down and out. When she heard that he committed suicide by jumping off the cliff, Cheng Menjing was a little worried and angry. Well, I don't care about him. After all, he used to be my fiancé. If something happens to him, I'm afraid I'm also responsible. Who asked the Cheng family to break off the engagement? Cheng Menjing gave the answer in her heart. But on the surface, she looked at Xiaochen very coldly. I thought you really committed suicide. It's good that you're not dead. Otherwise, others will think that it was the Cheng family who forced you to die. After that, Cheng Menjing didn't stay. She quickly turned around and left. Chao Yuliang thought that Cheng Menjing despised Xiao Chen, so he quickly followed and tried to please her. Yeah, Menjing, if Xiao Chen died, it would also affect your reputation. If you want to die, at least wait. He died in a hurry. However, Cheng Menjing didn't even look at Chao Yuliang. She went straight to a limousine at the school gate. This was the car that was responsible for picking her up and dropping her off every day. Xiao Chen, take this money. Spend it sparingly. It was Shen Jingxian who spoke. She gave an envelope to Xiao Chen, smiled at him, and turned to leave. Chao Yuliang's attention was on Cheng Menjing. Naturally, he didn't pay attention to this. As for Chen Jinpeng, although he also liked Shen Jingxian in his heart, it was because she was the target of his elder brother's pursuit. As a son of a concubine, Chen Jinpeng could only endure it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fallen to the point of being a subordinate of Xiao Chen and Chao Yuliang. Xiao Chen held the envelope that still had Shen Jingxuan's warmth. He was slightly surprised, but he didn't think that Shen Jingxian liked him. Shen Jingxian could be said to be the common lover of these aristocrats. Because she was so kind to everyone and often participated in some public welfare and charity activities, it was not a big deal to give a sum of money to Xiao Chen. Moreover, Xiao Chen wouldn't believe that Cheng Menjing didn't incite Cheng Menjing in this matter. At that time, only Cheng Menjing knew that he didn't have the money to pay for the noodles. Chao Yuliang definitely wouldn't let Shen Jingxian give him money. Xiao Chen put away the money. Although it wasn't a lot, it was enough for him to use for a while. At the very least, the problem of food and clothing was solved. It seemed that his ex-fiancée's heart was also quite kind, but her usual indifference covered her kindness. Especially when she was with Shen Jingxian, it couldn't highlight anything about Cheng Menjing. But now that he thought about it, if it wasn't so, they wouldn't have become such good girlfriends. Although he got a sum of money, Xiao Chen wasn't very happy. He thought that the person who pushed him was Chen Jinpeng, but listening to Chao Yuliang, the whole school knew about this matter. Was it the taxi driver who said it? Who wants to harm me? In Xiao Chen's opinion, the taxi driver was most likely an excuse. Perhaps the source of the rumor came from the person who pushed him down the cliff. Or, this taxi driver was arranged by him. Otherwise, why would he take the initiative to appear in front of me and take me to Songlong Mountain cliff mouth? Of course, it could also be a coincidence, but the person who pushed me down the cliff must be the person who spread the rumor. However, it was too difficult to find the source of the rumor on campus. He could only take it step by step. First, he would improve his strength, and then slowly find the behind-the-scenes manipulator. Of course, what puzzled Xiao Chen the most was that he was already so down and out. From his usual performance, he was completely a prodigal son who had no ability to survive. Why did this person want to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots? What good would it do him if he killed me? Xiao Chen walked all the way back to his dormitory. Xiao Chen had turned a blind eye to the fingers of other people on the way. These people were probably here to see his resurrection. The speed of the rumor was really fast. Chapter 8. Dormitory. Xiao Chen had a separate dormitory in the school, but Xiao Chen had only stayed there a few times in the past 3 years. The furniture inside was covered with a thick layer of dust. Fortunately, there was a dormitory. Otherwise, Xiao Chen would probably have to sleep on the streets. The dormitory's fees were paid when he entered the school, so Xiao Chen didn't have to worry about it. Xiao Chen didn't care about the dust on the furniture. He directly sat on the bed with his legs crossed, ready to start practicing the mantra that Elder Heaven Ancestor had given him. After all, he had been longing for strength for too long. Now that there was a chance to turn things around, Xiao Chen definitely couldn't wait. After sitting down, Xiao Chen began to recall the mantra that Elder Heaven Ancestor had passed to him. Xiao Chen didn't know how Elder Heaven Ancestor had passed it to him, but when he recalled, a sheepskin scroll that recorded the mantra suddenly appeared in his mind. This sheepskin scroll was vivid in his mind, as if Xiao Chen had seen it himself. It should be the memory of Elder Heaven Ancestor, but he didn't know why it had been transmitted to Xiao Chen's mind. Decisive battle to turn fortune into heaven snatch? What kind of lousy name was this? It was so strange. However, Xiao Chen didn't care. Generally, very powerful mantra had very strange names. For example, he had read a biographical novel called School Bell's Personal Expert on his mobile phone. In it, there was a Master Lin who practiced the art of dragon mastery. Look, what a crappy name. However, that mental cultivation method was extremely powerful. Thinking about it, this decisive battle, turning fortune into heaven seizing, should also be very powerful. Since it could even be called a decisive battle, it should be quite powerful. The turning fortune into heaven seizing of the decisive battle should be an even more powerful existence, just like how a horse would break through the clouds and trample through the universe. Thinking up to here, Xiao Chen began to cultivate according to the mantra on the decisive battle against heaven-seizing fate. Although this cultivation method was different from the body forging when cultivating inner strength, Xiao Chen was very familiar with the acupuncture points and meridians of the human body since he had been cultivating inner strength since young. Although Xiao Chen felt that this decisive battle to turn fortune into heaven snatch was a little strange, Xiao Chen had never been in contact with such things, so he braced himself and continued to practice. According to the information left in Xiao Chen's mind by the Elder Heaven Ancestor, if one wanted to become a cultivator, the first step was to sense the inner qi in his body. After forming the sense of qi, according to the order of the mantra, let this sense of qi, which was the so-called primordial qi, run back and forth in the meridians of the body. As long as it could be successfully run, it was equivalent to setting foot on the threshold of cultivation. Everything was difficult at the beginning, but for an obsessive-compulsive madman like Xiao Chen, it was nothing at all. How boring was it in the eyes of ordinary people to repeatedly run the mantra to produce the sense of qi in the body. But for Xiao Chen, who had been training his inner strength in the basement for more than 10 years, it was nothing at all. Over and over again, Xiao Chen ran the mantra tirelessly. Although there was no feeling in his body, Xiao Chen felt that the Elder Heaven Ancestor would not deceive him, so he still forced himself to run the mantra over and over again. 8:00, 9:00, 10:00, 11:00, 12:00. Although Xiao Chen could run the mantra tirelessly over and over again, at this moment, he more or less doubted whether this decisive battle to turn fortune into heaven snatch was suitable for him to practice. There was no reaction for so long. Was it because his aptitude was too poor, or was there a problem with his cultivation method? If he wanted to cultivate, did he have to go to a place with abundant qi of heaven and earth? However, just as Xiao Chen was wondering, suddenly, Xiao Chen felt a slight chill in his chest. Then, he clearly felt that there was a small stream of qi that began to spread from his chest to his whole body along the meridians in his body. As Xiao Chen ran the mantra, the stream of qi became bigger and bigger. At this moment, Xiao Chen wanted to exclaim in surprise. He had actually successfully cultivated the sense of qi. Didn't this mean that he was about to become a cultivator? Thinking of this, Xiao Chen gritted his teeth and continued to quickly run the mantra, making the stream of qi in his body more and more. It began to circulate around the meridians in his body. As the vitality in Xiao Chen's body increased, the vitality began to flow through the meridians in his body. This caused Xiao Chen to cry out in pain. This was the first time that vitality was flowing through the meridians. This kind of feeling was heart-wrenching, but Xiao Chen did not stop. Ever since he was young, he only believed in one sentence. That was, only by enduring the most bitter hardships can one rise above others. If it wasn't for the bone-chilling cold, how could there be the fragrance of plum blossoms? This was also the reason why Xiao Chen had been training in the basement for more than 10 years. However, sometimes, no matter how hard he worked, the materials were not right. An iron rod could be ground into a needle, but a wooden rod could not. Xiao Chen's physique was not good enough. No matter how much he trained, he could not cultivate inner strength. Therefore, when the vitality was produced, Xiaochen would be so excited. Even if it was extremely painful, he would grit his teeth and persist in this hard-won success. Finally, under Xiaochen's forceful cultivation, every meridian in his body was filled with vitality. This vitality began to circulate continuously in Xiaochen's meridians, one round after another. It was unknown when it started, but Xiaochen discovered that the pain of the meridians tearing no longer existed. Instead, it was replaced by a warm and comfortable feeling. While this vitality was circulating in the meridians, it also seemed to be nourishing them. After an unknown period of time, the sky turned white. Xiaochen felt that the vitality circulating in his body suddenly stopped, and then it quickly surged towards his dantian. In an instant, all the vitality continuously surged into Xiaochen's dantian. Xiaochen only felt that his dantian was about to explode. This vitality was constantly being compressed in his dantian, and Xiaochen's face also turned red. There wouldn't be a problem, right? Xiaochen clenched his teeth, but he didn't know what to do. He wanted to stop the circulation of the mantra, but he didn't dare to casually stop. It wasn't easy to cultivate the sense of qi, and it had even formed a cycle. If he were to give up just like that, Xiaochen wouldn't be willing. This was the strength that he had been yearning for day and night for more than a decade. Boom! Xiaochen only felt his body suddenly shake, and it was as if something in his body had broken through. Although there was a kind of pain from the vibration, there was also a kind of pleasure that had been suppressed for a long time and was suddenly released. In this situation, Xiaochen had no choice but to stop the circulation of the mantra. He had already cultivated until it exploded. If he didn't stop, who knew what else would happen in a while? Strength was important, but he also needed to be alive to have it. After stopping the circulation of the mantra, Xiaochen quickly checked his body to see if there were any problems with his body. However, before Xiaochen started checking, there was a sudden sound in his ear, and it shocked Xiaochen. Chapter 9. Xiaochen, not bad. You've broken through to the first level of qi refinement so quickly? I thought you'd need a few days. The sudden voice in the quiet morning scared Xiaochen so much that he almost exploded. It was the voice of the elder heaven ancestor. When Xiaochen heard it clearly, he breathed a sigh of relief. I say, elder heaven ancestor, can you not be so surprised? Don't you know that you can scare people to death when you speak so suddenly? Also, don't call me Xiaochen, it sounds like a eunuch. Then next time, I'll remind you that I'm going to speak. The elder heaven ancestor asked jokingly. Xiaochen, what's the difference? Xiaochen was speechless. You're reminding me, but you're still talking to me? But then again, the elder heaven ancestor could only communicate with me through words. What else could I do? As for how the elder heaven ancestor addressed me, no one else could hear it, so I'll just let it be. I didn't expect your vital energy to be so pure. You've just broken through to the first level of qi refinement, and you're already able to wake me up. The elder heaven ancestor was a little surprised. But then he suddenly exclaimed, that's not right. Kid, are you practicing the mantra I gave you? Your yuan qi is a little different from my yuan qi in the past. Of course, it's different. How did you wake up? Xiaochen was a little surprised. I can use it. I'm also curious why I can use it, but I'm sure it's not. The elder heaven ancestor said with certainty, the vital energy in your body is definitely different from mine. Are you sure you're practicing the mantra I gave you? Isn't that obvious? Xiaochen rolled his eyes. If I had other mantras, would have practiced them long ago. Why would I be pushed off a cliff? What I'm cultivating is definitely the decisive battle fortune seizing heaven technique that you gave me. What? The elder heaven ancestor said, visibly taken aback. What do you mean by good fortune seized by the heavens? What's that? The mantra that you transmitted to my mind. Xiaofan said. Pfft. The Elder Heaven Ancestor almost burst out laughing. What decisive battle! That's called the Heaven's Fortune Battle Art. It's a mantra, not a decisive battle. Xiaofan, are you blind? Heaven-stealing fortune battle art? Xiaofan was stunned. He carefully looked at it in his mind. That Jew was probably Jew. It was just that these two words were too similar. They were only one stroke apart. Xiaofan's first impression was the strongest, and he saw it as decisive battle, so he had always treated it as Jew. In other words, this word was read backwards. Xiaofan, don't you know that these mantras are from ancient texts? You have to read them from right to left. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said helplessly. How could there be such a strange name? Decisive battle fortune seizing heaven technique. This. Old Sky, may I ask if every line of the mental cultivation method mnemonic chant is read from right to left as well? Xiaofan's heart trembled as he hurriedly asked. Yes. When the Elder Heaven Ancestor said this, his tone suddenly changed. I say, don't tell me you cultivated from left to right? Yes. Xiaofan felt like crying. Damn, what was going on? No one had ever told him that this mantra had to be read from right to left. This sentence took up one line, and each mantra didn't exceed one line. That was why when Xiaofan read it, he didn't notice anything wrong and continued to cultivate. However, the Elder Heaven Ancestor told him that he cultivated it backwards. Then how did you cultivate it? The Elder Heaven Ancestor was in disbelief. Wasn't this too much of a genius? If I didn't cultivate it, how did you wake up? Xiaofan was a little anxious. I say, Elder Heaven Ancestor, aren't you too much of a scammer? Couldn't you have said it first before fainting? Now that I cultivated it backwards, there's no harm, right? How would I know? The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice was a little strange. Who would have thought that you could cultivate it backwards? This is the first time I've heard of this. Besides, don't you understand the general knowledge of ancient texts? Then what should I do now? Should I cultivate it backwards? Xiaofan asked with a bitter smile. That's absolutely not possible. The Elder Heaven Ancestor immediately said. Every cultivator can only cultivate one mantra, and they must stick to one until the end. If they change their mantra midway, then at best, they won't be able to cultivate both mantras. At worst, they will go mad and become a cripple. So, if you can cultivate it backwards, then continue to cultivate it. I don't know how far you can go. So you're saying that I won't be able to become a top expert in the future? After hearing this, Xiaofan's heart tightened. He was a little unwilling. A good opportunity was right in front of him, but he wasted it. This was really F***ed up. That's hard to say. But, since you can cultivate it backwards, I remember something. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said. What is it? Xiaofan asked. A long time ago, when I was young and had just entered the sect, my master said something very strange when he passed the Heaven's Stolen Fortune battle art to me. Elder Sky seemed to be reminiscing as he said with some emotion, he told me that the Heaven's Stolen Fortune battle art can be cultivated in reverse, but he said to me that the Heaven's Stolen Fortune battle art can be cultivated in reverse? Xiaofan's heart moved, but he immediately shook his head. This was too ridiculous. Elder Heaven Ancestor, are you comforting me? It's not really comforting. Maybe, cultivating like this is the right thing to do? The Elder Heaven Ancestor was a little confused. But, no matter what, you are now a true first-level refinement expert. First-level refinement? What level is that? Xiaofan asked. Generally speaking, the strength of a level 1 refinement stage expert is equivalent to a level 1 inner force expert. Elder Sky said. What? Xiaofan was shocked. Elder Heaven Ancestor, you mean to say that after one night of cultivation, I am equivalent to first-level internal force expert? Not equal, but approximately equal. The elder heaven ancestor said. In other words, you are still a little bit weaker than first-level internal force expert? Xiao Chen said. After all, in one night, he had caught up with the other person's cultivation for so long. I say, Xiao Chen, when will you change your mind? I've already told you that we are cultivators, so we are stronger than martial artists. Right now, your strength is similar to that of a stage 1 inner force martial artist, but you have the ability to cast spells that martial artists don't have. Spells? Xiao Chen laughed dryly. It wasn't a matter of changing his mindset. It was just that it was too easy to reach the first stage of the qi refinement stage. Xiao Chen subconsciously felt that he wasn't as powerful as a martial artist at the first stage of inner force. Chapter 10. That's right. For example, transmogrification, invisibility, tracking, lock-on, healing, maturing plants, alchemy, forging, and so on. Elder Sky said, I will transmit the corresponding spells and usage methods of each level to you. Just as Elder Sky finished speaking, a thought flashed through Xiao Chen's mind. Another sheepskin scroll appeared. Recorded on it were the spells and methods that cultivators of each level could use. Xiao Chen took a look at the spells that could be used in the first level of the refinement stage. Damn, there was nothing. Elder Heaven Ancestor, why is there nothing in the first level of refinement stage? Xiao Chen asked in a depressed tone. The first level of a martial artist's inner force is only for strengthening the body and allowing the user to exert the body's maximum strength. It's not that amazing, is it? Elder Heaven Ancestor asked. Xiao Chen was slightly surprised but immediately nodded his head. Indeed, a martial artist's inner force was divided into the first level, second level, all the way to the 10th level. The first level of inner force was only for strengthening the body and allowing the user to exert the body's maximum strength. In other words, the user could exert the full potential of a normal person. The second level of inner force was twice the limit of the user's maximum strength. The third level of inner force was 3 times the limit of the user's maximum strength, and so on. Therefore, even if the martial artists were at the same level, there was still a gap between them. However, this gap was not particularly big. Martial artists who could cultivate inner force were generally not weak, so the maximum strength they could exert was about the same. Of course, this did not exclude those martial artists who were born with divine strength. These martial artists, once they cultivated to a certain level, would become the king of the martial artist world. Because inner force was a common martial artist's martial art, the mantra was basically the same. Even if there were some differences, it was still more or less the same. Therefore, it was relatively easy to distinguish between martial artists. Even if a martial artist had not cultivated inner force, when a martial artist used inner force, it was still possible to determine the martial artist's level of strength. Of course, that was unless it was an ordinary person who did not understand martial artists. However, Xiao Chen, who was at the first level of the qi refining stage, was different. This was a very vague concept. Xiao Chen himself could not feel how strong he was. If it was not for Elder Sky's words, he would have thought that the first level of the qi refining stage was useless. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen stood up excitedly and punched the dormitory wall. Boom dash, with a loud bang, the walls of the dormitory began to crumble. Although the thick concrete walls were not damaged, the limit of a normal person's strength was only this much. If one wanted to break the concrete with one punch, that would be impossible unless one was born with godly strength. Hiss, Xiao Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. Even he didn't expect that he would cause such a huge commotion. This loud noise was abnormally loud in the quiet dormitory area in the early morning. He did not know if others would think that it was an earthquake. However, Xiaochen could clearly feel that this was the strength of a martial artist who had reached the first level of inner force. He could increase his strength to the limit. This was something that Xiaochen had not been able to do for the past 10 years despite his efforts. Elder Heaven Ancestor, this decisive battle fortune-seizing technique is simply too awesome. Xiaochen said excitedly. It is the battle fortune-seizing technique. Elder Heaven Ancestor said nervously. Isn't it the decisive battle fortune-seizing technique that I am practicing? Xiaochen said. Well, yes. Elder Heaven Ancestor also could not figure out what kind of mantra Xiaochen was practicing. Xiaochen felt as if his body had been reborn. For more than 10 years, he had never felt so comfortable as this morning. There were still a few hours before class. Xiaochen sat on his bed, calmed down, and began to think about what happened yesterday. Father was missing? Although before this news was confirmed, his father had disappeared for more than half a year, and many people said that the team led by his father had all fallen, Xiaochen still did not believe that his father had fallen. In Xiaochen's heart, his father was his role model, and also the goal that he had been working hard to achieve. Although Xiao Feng's qualifications were not as good as Cheng Menjiang's uncle, the genius of the younger generation of the Cheng family, Xiaofan and Xiaochen were very hard-working, which also made him one of the top masters of the younger generation. The trial team that was weaker than his father had successfully returned, but his father did not return. Xiaochen felt a little strange, but with his father's strength, there should not have been any accidents. Or, the fall of his father's trial team was the same as Xiaochen's suicide yesterday. It was fake news released by someone with ulterior motives. However, what happened yesterday was a wake-up call for Xiaochen. Someone wanted him dead. I don't know if this person has anything to do with his father's disappearance. Xiaochen knew that all the mysteries could only be confirmed after he caught this person. However, Xiaochen was now in the light, and the enemy was in the dark. In this school, there were too many people who didn't like Xiaochen. It was a little difficult for Xiaochen to find this person. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiaochen had cultivated a calm and inexpressive personality since he was young, these blows from yesterday would have been enough to make him collapse. If it was replaced by that good-for-nothing hedonistic idiot on the surface, he might really have committed suicide. This was also the reason why after the news of Xiaochen's suicide spread in the school, no one suspected Xiaochen's suicide. Instead, they felt strange that Xiaochen did not die. It had to be said that the mastermind behind this was really sinister. He killed me and framed me as a suicide. Seeing that it was almost time, Xiaochen washed his face, left the dormitory, and walked in the direction of the classroom. Along the way, people kept pointing at Xiaochen. Perhaps they were gloating because Xiaochen was kicked out of the Xiao family, or perhaps they were gloating because Xiaochen committed suicide yesterday and appeared again today. However, Xiaochen didn't care. He just frowned in his heart. In this environment, it was really a little difficult to find the person who harmed me. At least, in Xiaochen's opinion, everyone could be the murderer who harmed me, and everyone didn't look very similar. Hey, isn't this Xiaochen? Where are you going in such a hurry? A teasing voice came into Xiaochen's ears. This was the voice of Chao Yuliang. Xiaochen stopped, raised his head, and looked coldly at Chao Yuliang. With Xiaochen's current strength, it was easy to teach Chao Yuliang a lesson. Although the Chao family was powerful, Chao Yuliang was just like him in the past, a rich playboy who couldn't cultivate inner force. However, what Xiaochen was afraid of was Chao Yuliang's side, Chen Jinpeng. Chen Jinpeng was a stage 2 inner force martial artist, and Xiaochen didn't want to reveal his strength too early. Who knew if the people who harmed me were these two, or if they were watching nearby? If they knew that I had successfully mastered the strength of stage 1 inner force, maybe they would want to kill me even more. Thinking quickly, Xiaochen couldn't think of a good way. Chapter 11. Xiaochen, why are you so flustered? Not long after Chao Yuliang's teasing voice fell, Elder Heaven Ancestor's teasing voice sounded in Xiao Chen's ear again. F***CK. Elder Heaven Ancestor, can you stop causing trouble? I'm already in a difficult situation. Xiao Chen responded helplessly in his mind. Huh, Xiao Chen knows how to look at me coldly. Your eyes are so sharp. I'm so scared. Chao Yuliang saw Xiao Chen's cold eyes. Not only was he not afraid, but he laughed even more unscrupulously. Yesterday, Chao Yuliang was a little annoyed that Xiao Chen didn't die. Motherf **Ker, he booked a banquet at the largest hotel in Songning City, Azure Sea Palace. After school in the evening, he prepared to celebrate the death of his longtime rival, Xiao Chen, with his new underling, Chen Jinpeng, and a group of former underlings. But he didn't expect to see a lively Xiao Chen come back when he just walked to the school gate. How could he not be annoyed? Originally, he wanted to teach Xiao Chen a lesson yesterday, but who would have thought that Cheng Menjing would appear? In front of Cheng Menjing, Chao Yuliang couldn't go too far. Although Chao Yuliang knew that Cheng Menjing didn't like Xiao Chen at all, beating up her ex-fiancé in front of her was a little like slapping her in the face. So, Chao Yuliang endured it. However, after he heard the underlings report this morning, he couldn't bear it anymore. Last night, when he was chasing after Cheng Menjing, Shen Jingxian had secretly slipped a bag of money to Xiao Chen. Although he knew Shen Jingshuan's character and that she would even give some money to a poor beggar, if Cheng Menjing hadn't told Shen Jingxian that Xiao Chen had no money, how could Shen Jingxian have given money to Xiao Chen? Why was Goddess Cheng so concerned about Xiao Chen? Was it just because Xiao Chen was her ex-fiancé? Therefore, Chao Yuliang was so angry that he brought Chen Jinpeng and a few of his underlings to stop Xiao Chen early in the morning. He wanted to teach him a lesson and warn him to stay away from Cheng Menjing. Hehe, do you need any help? The Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice rang out again. Help? You can help? Xiao Chen frowned slightly. Even if the Elder Heaven Ancestor used his body to attack, wouldn't he have exposed his true strength? This wasn't what Xiao Chen wanted to see. Of course, if I don't show you my strength, how can you admire me as your master? It seems that you don't respect me very much. The Elder Heaven Ancestor said arrogantly. Xiao Chen was about to say something to the Elder Heaven Ancestor when Chen Jinpeng, who was not far behind Chao Yuliang, pretended to notice the situation and said, "Oh, isn't this boss? Boss, what trouble are you in? I'm here. Boss, just tell me what to do." Chen Jinpeng did this on purpose to humiliate Xiao Chen. He wanted to make Xiao Chen feel the difference between heaven and earth. The more he hit Xiao Chen, the more he would feel inferior. Xiao Chen, if I were you, I would be ashamed. Don't tell me that you need a little brother to protect you. Oh, right, you also have an ex-fiancé. Chao Yuliang also played along with Chen Jinpeng's act. If I were you, I would be ashamed. Even if I didn't commit suicide, would transfer to another school. How could you still have the face to stay here? Let me give you a piece of advice. Stay away from Cheng Menjing in the future. Transfer to another school? Xiao Chen's heart moved slightly. Yes, I can transfer to another school. Here, I stand in the light, and the person who wants to deal with me is in the dark. It can be said that it is extremely difficult to find him. But if I transfer to another school, this person will have to go to the new school to find me if he wants to harm me again. In this way, this familiar face will also be exposed in the light. What Xiao Chen didn't expect was that Chao Yuliang's inadvertent words reminded him. But Xiao Chen immediately smiled bitterly. Now, he had lost the halo of the young master of the Xiao family. He didn't have money or background. How could he transfer to another school? If he didn't pay the transfer fee to the new school, would they let him go as he pleased? Well, Chen Jinpeng, Chao Yuliang dared to insult me. You beat him up for me. Beat him up until his mother can't recognize him. Xiao Chen suddenly shouted. However, the tragedy in Xiao Chen's heart was that it wasn't him who shouted. It was the bastard elder heaven ancestor who took over his body and shouted. Therefore, this sentence of Xiao Chen shocked Chao Yuliang and his underlings. No matter how stupid this Xiao Chen was, he wouldn't be stupid to this extent, right? Chen Jinpeng clearly wanted to humiliate him, and he really believed it. However, what made Chao Yuliang even more shocked was that Chen Jinpeng actually replied loudly, "Yes. Boss, don't worry. Chao Yuliang dared to humiliate you. I will let him know that those who humiliate others will be humiliated in return." Chao Yuliang was slightly stunned. He looked at Chen Jinpeng with some surprise. He thought that there was no need for Chen Jinpeng to continue acting, right? However, the next moment, he saw a fist enlarging in front of his eyes, continuously enlarging. Bang! Chao Yuliang's face was punched by Chen Jinpeng. Chao Yuliang suddenly let out an scream. Blood flowed from his nose as he took 2 steps back. He looked at Chen Jinpeng in horror. Chen Jinpeng, you, bang. The answer to Chao Yuliang was a kick to the nether. Chen Jinpeng directly kicked Chao Yuliang's little brother. Chao Yuliang suddenly covered his crotch and jumped up on the spot. He was in so much pain that he was sweating profusely. Chen Jinpeng was a master of stage 2 inner force. This hit on Chao Yuliang's body was equivalent to taking his life. Motherf ****, Chen Jinpeng, you're crazy. Chao Yuliang shouted. However, the answer to Chao Yuliang was Chen Jinpeng's slap. Pa! Chao Yuliang was slapped in the face. At this moment, Chao Yuliang's underlings looked at Chen Jinpeng in shock. They suspected that this Chen Jinpeng was playing infernal affairs. Previously, he pretended to surrender, but in fact, he wanted to humiliate Chao Yuliang at the right time. But, this was not logical. Xiao Chen had already lost his power. How could a destitute young master be compared to Chao Yuliang at all? Chao Yuliang and his underlings were stunned. Go, go! Pull this madman away! Chao Yuliang shouted at his underlings in exasperation. These underlings hesitated for a moment. They were Chao Yuliang's underlings, but they were not bodyguards. They were just students of the school. The strongest among them was only a stage 1 inner force martial artist, and Chen Jinpeng was a stage 2 inner force martial artist. This was not a secret in Chao Yuliang's circle. This was also the reason why they did not dare to make a move before. But now, Chao Yuliang had given the order. These underlings had no choice but to bite the bullet. Otherwise, the consequences would be even more miserable. Therefore, in front of Xiao Chen, there was a big fight. Chen Jinpeng was desperately beating Chao Yuliang, and Chao Yuliang's underlings were desperately beating Chen Jinpeng. Fortunately, Chen Jinpeng seemed to be possessed. He only attacked Chao Yuliang, but he was indifferent to those underlings who were beating him. Chapter 12. To be honest, Chao Yuliang and his underlings were not the only ones who were shocked. Xiao Chen himself was also shocked. He was also very curious as to why Chen Jinpeng suddenly attacked Chao Yuliang like a madman, putting on a wonderful dog-eat-dog show. That's right, it's the Elder Heaven Ancestor. Xiao Chen suddenly remembered what the Elder Heaven Ancestor said before. Elder Heaven Ancestor must be behind this. But how did the Elder Heaven Ancestor do it? Elder Heaven Ancestor, you did it, didn't you? At this moment, Xiao Chen had already regained control of his body. It was only for a moment that the Elder Heaven Ancestor took over his body. Hee, Xiao Chen, it seems that you are not stupid. That's right, I did it. Elder Heaven Ancestor said proudly. You? How did you do it? Xiao Chen was very shocked. He didn't care about the arrogant tone of the Elder Heaven Ancestor. Cultivators have strong mental strength. It is still possible to influence other people's thoughts. Elder Heaven Ancestor said. Influence other people's thoughts? Xiao Chen suddenly understood. He couldn't help but be very excited. So that's how it is. Cultivators are actually so powerful? At first, Xiao Chen thought that cultivators were just a roundabout route. They use special methods to achieve the power of a martial artist. But now, it seemed that was not the case at all. Nonsense. Cultivators are a very high-end and powerful profession. How is it? Your master is considered powerful, right? Now do you admit defeat? Elder Heaven Ancestor asked. Very powerful. But when can I influence other people's thoughts? Xiao Chen asked with some expectation. You are only at the first level of the refinement stage. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Elder Heaven Ancestor reminded. Xiao Chen was a little unwilling. When he was about to ask again, a wheezing voice came over. Boss, I heard that the traitor Chen Jinpeng and Chao Yuliang are together to cause trouble. I'm not late, am I? I'm here. As soon as Xiao Chen turned his head, he saw a ball covered in bandages running towards him at an incomparably fast speed. This speed did not match his size, but his speed was just that fast. Xiao Chen's heart slightly moved. This person was another one of his underlings. His name was Zhu Yingxiong. Yesterday, when Xiao Chen was down and out, Zhu Yingxiong didn't come to school. So, Xiao Chen subconsciously thought that Zhu Yingxiong was also ungrateful and betrayed him. He didn't expect that Zhu Yingxiong would run over so early in the morning. What made Xiao Chen the most strange was that Zhu Yingxiong was actually covered in bandages. He was simply like a mummy. Zhu Yingxiong? If it wasn't for his size and voice, Xiao Chen almost couldn't recognize him. Boss, am I late? Huh? When Zhu Yingxiong ran over, he was stunned to see the scene in front of him. Chen Jinpeng, Chao Yuliang, and Chao Yuliang's underlings were actually fighting together. This was simply a big fight. Wow, boss, are they crazy? Who knows? Chao Yuliang came looking for trouble before. Chen Jinpeng said that he would help me teach Chao Yuliang a lesson, so I agreed. You saw the result. Xiao Chen shrugged and said innocently. Indeed, he was very innocent. It had nothing to do with him. It was obviously Elder Heaven Ancestor who did it. Could it be that the traitor is playing infernal affairs? No, this isn't his personality. Is he really crazy? Zhu Yingxiong looked at Chen Jinpeng, who was in the middle of the battle royale, and muttered to himself. Who knows? Let's go. Don't worry about them. Xiao Chen said to Zhu Yingxiong. Then he waved his hand at Chen Jinpeng and said, Jinpeng, you did a good job. Chen Jinpeng was still waving his fists and punching Chao Yuliang. While Chao Yuliang was protecting the vital parts of his body, a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. Xiao Chen, don't be too proud. Boss, did you really get kicked out of the Xiao family? After the two left and entered the classroom, Zhu Yingxiong asked. That's right. Xiao Chen sighed slightly. His eyes fell on Zhu Yingxiong's face. However, from his eyes, Xiao Chen saw concern and worry. There was no mockery or schadenfreude. It seemed that Zhu Yingxiong wasn't a two-faced villain. Yesterday, he didn't show up. Xiao Chen had wronged him. His injuries were probably related to him not coming to school yesterday. It's true. Wow, then breaking off the engagement is also true? Zhu Yingxiong exclaimed. That's true. Xiao Chen nodded. Forget it. There are plenty of fish in the sea. Boss, you still have me. Zhu Yingxiong comforted him. However, Xiao Chen felt a chill run down his spine. And you? By the way, what's with your body full of injuries? I'm no longer the Xiao Chen from before. Do you still call me boss? Xiaochen asked. Wow, once a boss, always a boss. I'm not Qin Jinping, the traitor. As for this injury, I fell. Zhu Yingxiong was obviously unwilling to mention his injuries. Old pig, thank you. Xiaochen was a little touched. However, Xiaochen looked at Zhu Yingxiong up and down and asked, did you jump off the cliff? You have injuries all over your body? Who are you lying to? Ugh. Zhu Yingxiong's expression was stagnant. He smiled bitterly and said, wow, you are indeed a boss. You saw through the flaws at a glance. Well, to be honest, yesterday I heard that you were chased out of the family and the Cheng family broke off the engagement. I was going to come to school to support you, but my dad didn't agree. He asked me to stay away from you, so I quarreled with him. In the end, he beat me up like this. Although Zhu Yingxiong's words were simple, Xiaochen knew that the situation at that time was probably quite intense. What kind of quarrel was it to beat him up like this? In Xiaochen's heart, there was only deep emotion. Disregarding the traitor Qin Jinping, Zhu Yingxiong was a brother. That was enough. In fact, the one Zhu Yingxiong never left was the prodigal Xiaochen. Then why did you come out now? Xiaochen was a little puzzled. He was already beaten up like this. Why did the Zhu family allow Zhu Yingxiong to come out today? It's because the old ancestor of my family asked my dad not to interfere in my affairs. If there is a problem, the old ancestor will bear it. So, my dad didn't even dare to fart. Zhu Yingxiong said proudly. Xiaochen nodded. Xiaochen knew about the old ancestor of the Zhu family. Only this old ancestor could say such domineering words. The children of other families all kept a respectful distance from Xiaochen, for fear of angering the Qing family. Moreover, it was reasonable that Zhu Yingxiong's father didn't allow him to have any contact with Xiaochen. After all, a big family would consider the gains and losses of the family as a whole, rather than personal preferences. Naturally, the Zhu family didn't want to offend the Cheng family because of such a small matter. However, since the old ancestor of the Zhu family had spoken, the Zhu family naturally didn't dare to say anything. Because the old ancestor of the Cheng family didn't dare to act rashly. Chapter 13. The Zhu family that Zhu Yingxiong belonged to used to be ranked at the bottom of the 4 big and 5 small aristocratic families. It was said that they were about to be kicked out of the aristocratic families in the previous year's aristocratic family meeting. As the heir of such a family, Zhu Yingxiong naturally didn't have a good life. Thus, he became one of the targets of Chao Yuliang's bullying. Xiaochen had only helped him when Chao Yuliang was bullying him. Since then, Zhu Yingxiong had become Xiaochen's follower. To Xiaochen, this was nothing. However, to Zhu Yingxiong, it was like a drop of water being repaid with a gushing spring. Because of Xiaochen, he had been able to live with more dignity from then on. Not long after this incident, the Zhu family held a family meeting on the eve of the aristocratic family's meeting. The Zhu family was prepared to give up on participating in the meeting. After all, it was already certain that they would be kicked out of the aristocratic families. If they went, they would only be slapped in the face. It would be even more embarrassing. What was the point of looking for abuse? However, at this time, an old ancestor of the Zhu family returned. Actually, to be honest, this old ancestor was only the Zhu family's granduncle. He didn't have any direct descendants. Even so, he could be considered as the ancestor of the Zhu family. Xiaochen didn't know how powerful the Zhu family's old ancestor was. However, he knew that after the Zhu family's old ancestor came back, he only paid a visit to the Cheng family. In the following aristocratic family meeting, the Cheng family's old master actually supported the Zhu family from the bottom of the 5 small aristocratic families to the top of the 5 small aristocratic families. Although the Cheng family was the top of the 9 aristocratic families, Old Master Cheng's suggestion to let the Zhu family be the top of the 5 small aristocratic families for no reason was a bit unacceptable. However, the appearance of the old ancestor made everyone shut up. Moreover, everyone agreed that it was a waste of the Zhu family's talent to be the top of the 5 small aristocratic families. However, the old ancestor didn't have any intention of fighting for power. He only wanted to maintain the status of the Zhu family. However, such a powerful person had actually taken a fancy to Zhu Yingxiong and decided to make him his successor. As a result, a member of the Zhu family, an aspiring martial artist family, also embarked on the path of cultivation. However, Zhu Yingxiong had started his cultivation relatively late and had yet to reach the first stage of inner force. He had only touched the edge of the barrier, which was also the reason why his father was able to beat him up so badly. Xiaofan patted Zhu Yingxiong's shoulder. Although he didn't say anything, everything was expressed without words. Xiaofan saw Zhu Yingxiong's sincerity. However, the situation he was facing now wasn't something that Zhu Yingxiong could help him. The old ancestor of the Zhu family wouldn't help him just because of his relationship with Zhu Yingxiong. Not to mention Zhu Yingxiong, the old ancestor didn't care much about the Zhu family's matters. "Oh right, boss, are you really okay? I heard that you committed suicide yesterday. I was in the hospital and really couldn't move. This morning, when I finally felt better, my lackeys called me and said that Chao Yuliang and Chen Jinpeng were looking for trouble with you. While I was happy that you didn't commit suicide, I also rushed over, afraid that these two would find trouble with you. However, I didn't expect them to fight among themselves. It's okay. What could it be?" Xiao Chen's tone had a hint of helplessness. "I don't know why they fought. But Chen Jinpeng definitely didn't find his conscience. I don't think it's possible. I didn't like this kid before. If he didn't follow you before me, F***ck, I would have already killed him," Zhu Yingxiong said. Xiao Chen nodded and didn't say anything. Zhu Yingxiong thought that Xiao Chen was in a bad mood, so he didn't say much. He didn't know that Xiao Chen didn't know what kind of attitude he should have when facing Zhu Yingxiong now. Should he show his original face or continue to pretend to be a playboy? If he continued to pretend to be a playboy at this time, he was purely a hopeless big idiot. Maybe when Zhu Yingxiong saw that he was hopeless, he would stay away. Of course, this was unlikely to happen with Zhu Yingxiong's character. The Zhu family was strong, and as the grandson of the Zhu family, Zhu Yingxiong was still Xiao Chen's lackey without the slightest dissatisfaction. He was even more of a lackey than Chen Jinpeng. He was simply Xiao Chen's lackey. Xiao Chen naturally didn't want to deceive him anymore, but Xiao Chen was afraid that he would be exposed and be attacked by his enemies. Therefore, in the contradiction, Xiao Chen could only choose to be silent for the time being. In the corridor of the teaching building, Chen Jinpeng, Chao Yuliang, and the others were still putting on a wonderful scene of Street Fighter until the school's security team came and forcibly separated them. This school was invested and built by the Shen family, and the Shen family was naturally Shen Jingshuan's family. The school's security team leader was actually a Stage 2 inner force martial artist, and he was a martial artist who was about to break through to Stage 3. This was enough to show how powerful the Shen family was. This was also the reason why the Shen family stood proudly outside of the 9 aristocratic families. "Chao Yuliang, Chen Jinpeng, what's going on?" the security team leader shouted. To deal with these playboys, only the security team leader could do it himself. "Don't you know that fighting is prohibited in the school? Do you want to be expelled?" Chao Yuliang looked at Chen Jinpeng angrily. He was very angry, but he didn't dare to say anything about the fight. Although Xiao Chen was down and out, the children of the aristocratic families were always looking for trouble with each other in private. It couldn't be said in public. Once the school knew about it, they would be severely punished. Although it wasn't a big deal if these children were expelled from the school, this was the Shen family's school. If they were expelled, how humiliating would it be? They wouldn't be able to raise their heads in front of the children of the other aristocratic families. What's more, Chao Yuliang still wanted to pursue Cheng Menjing. If he was expelled, how could he pursue her? How could he have the face to pursue her? Captain Shen, the aristocratic family's meeting is coming soon. Don't you know that there will be a competition between the younger generation? I and Chen Jinpeng have a competition in advance. It's different from fighting. Although Chao Yuliang felt wronged, he didn't forget to stare at Chen Jinpeng and asked, "Am I right?" Chen Jinpeng? Yes, Captain Shen. It's just that my strength is slightly higher than Brother Liang. Chao Yuliang's. So, I let the few of them fight together to balance out our strengths. Chen Jinpeng explained why Chao Yuliang's underlings had also joined the battle. Captain Shen naturally didn't believe their words, but he also knew that after Xiao Chen was down and out, his underling Chen Jinpeng switched to Chao Yuliang's side. That was to say, Chao Yuliang and Chen Jinpeng were on the same side. They had no reason to fight. However, even if it was a competition, they couldn't kill each other, right? It was obvious that both of them were seriously injured, but since the parties involved said that they were fine, Captain Shen didn't want to cause more trouble. He waved his hand and said, "Okay, since you are fine, go to class quickly. Don't block here." Chapter 14. Chao Yuliang and Chen Jinpeng quickly nodded and left with their tails between their legs. However, after a few steps, Chao Yuliang heard Captain Shen's words that made him stagger and almost fall to the ground. "Isn't that stupid? You can't beat each other to death even if you want to learn from each other. Isn't that stupid?" When he walked to the corner of the teaching building and couldn't see Captain Shen behind him, Chao Yuliang stopped and looked at Chen Jinpeng gloomily. His eyes were as if he wanted to skin Chen Jinpeng alive. "Chen Jinpeng, F***CKU. Don't think that I don't dare to do anything to you just because you're a martial artist at the second stage of inner force. Our Chao family's bodyguards can still kill you. Brother Liang. I really didn't mean it. I don't know what happened. I seemed to be confused just now, and then I didn't know anything until Captain Shen pulled me away. I didn't know what happened." Chen Jinpeng was so scared that his face turned pale. Although the Chen family wasn't weak, he was just a concubine's son in the Chen family. Wasn't it child's play for Chao Yuliang to teach him a lesson? Even if he was beaten and sent to the hospital, the Chen family wouldn't stand up for him for this matter, so he was so scared that he almost knelt down. "Brother Liang, you have to believe me. Xiao Chen has already fallen. Unless I'm stupid, I won't continue to be his follower. I'm not stupid like Zhu Yingxiong." Chao Yuliang frowned. What Chen Jinpeng said was very reasonable, and he also felt that Chen Jinpeng wasn't a fool. He wouldn't do such a stupid thing, but it just happened that Chen Jinpeng did such a stupid thing. "You said you didn't know anything just now? How can you prove it?" Chao Yuliang asked. "This. How can I prove it? I humiliated Xiao Chen in the basketball game yesterday. How could I be his accomplice? Brother Liang, please understand." Chen Jinpeng said carefully with a sad face. Chao Yuliang nodded. Logically speaking, Chen Jinpeng and Xiao Chen broke up yesterday. What happened yesterday was more damaging to Xiao Chen than today's beating of Xiao Chen. After all, for a playboy like Xiao Chen, being beaten was nothing, but losing his face in front of so many people was worse than death. Of course, Chao Yuliang had underestimated Xiao Chen. The playboy who cared about face was just Xiao Chen's disguise. The real Xiao Chen didn't care about this at all. How could face be more important than life? "Chen Jinpeng, I think you have schizophrenia. You'd better see a doctor." Chao Yuliang said coldly, "Forget about this matter. If there is a next time, I don't mind letting you live a life worse than death." "Definitely not." Chen Jinpeng wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. "I must have drunk too much last night. My mind is not clear. Yes, it must be. Be careful in the future. Chao Yuliang rubbed his swollen face and said angrily. If it weren't for Chen Jinpeng, who used to be Xiao Chen's underling, humiliating Xiao Chen even more, Chao Yuliang really wanted to kick Chen Jinpeng aside. But after thinking about it, he endured it and believed Chen Jinpeng for once. In a private room of a tea house, there were two middle-aged men sitting. One of them was wearing luxurious clothes. At first glance, it was obvious that he was a successful person in the business world. The other was wearing a white robe. At first glance, it was obvious that he was a powerful martial artist. However, the two were plotting something at the moment. After a while, the two obviously reached a consensus. Then, the two walked out of the private room one after another and left. The man in the white robe drove all the way back to the Cheng family, the head of the 9 families. "Young master, you're back. The master is in the meeting hall. He asked you to go there directly after you came back." A disciple of the Cheng family said to him. This person was the young master of the Cheng family and also Cheng Menjiang's father, Cheng Zhongming. He was now a martial artist with stage 6 inner force. Among the younger generation, he was also a very powerful existence. "I know." Cheng Zhongming nodded and walked quickly to the meeting hall. At this moment, the old master Cheng of the Cheng family, Cheng Tianqiu, was already sitting in the main seat of the meeting hall. In front of him stood Cheng Zhongming's younger brother, Cheng Xiaofan. "Big brother, you're back." When Cheng Xiaofan saw that Cheng Zhongming had returned, he asked anxiously, "How is it? Is there any news about third brother?" "No, I went to the warrior guild to ask. The other trial teams have all returned, except for Xiaofan and third brother's trial team." Cheng Zhongming sighed and said helplessly. "Xiaofan. I don't know if my son is dead or alive. I'm so angry." Cheng Tianqiu slammed the armrest of the armchair and shouted angrily, "Oh right, how is Xiaofang's little bastard? Is he dead? I heard that he jumped off a cliff and died. Did he get away with it?" "Father, Xiao Chen is not dead. The news of him jumping off a cliff is just a rumor." Cheng Zhongming knew that Xiao Chen was not dead last night. It was just that old master Cheng did not know. "Not dead?" Cheng Tianqiu frowned. "Zhongming, Zhongfan, what do you think? How should we deal with that little bastard Xiao Chen? When I think of him, I think of Zhongqian. Father, Xiao Chen is now in dire straits. Even if our Cheng family is the leader of the 9 families, we can't go overboard. If the other families see this, they will think that our Cheng family is too overbearing." "Overbearing? I'm just that overbearing." Cheng Tianqiu snorted coldly and said, "Zhongqian's fate is unknown. It's all because of that bastard Xiaofang's mistake. The son has to pay his father's debts. Zhongming, I know that Xiaofang is your sworn brother. But think about it. Are they biological brothers or sworn brothers? Zhongming knows." Cheng Zhongming's heart skipped a beat and he quickly responded. "Then, tell me, how should we deal with Xiao Chen?" It was not that Cheng Tianqiu did not want to let go of a junior. It was just that his most outstanding son, Cheng Zhongqian's fate was unknown. He had no way to vent his anger on the Xiao family. He could only pick a soft persimmon to pinch and vent his anger on Xiaofang's playboy son. Anyway, Xiao Chen was a useless playboy. This kind of trash who could not cultivate inner strength and could not contribute to the family, the Xiao family would not fight with the Cheng family. So, Cheng Tianqiu vented his anger on Xiao Chen. "Father, in fact, sometimes the pleasure of revenge does not necessarily come from killing someone. It comes from torturing someone. If Xiao Chen were to be tortured and humiliated, wouldn't it be more satisfying for you, father?" Cheng Zhongming asked. "Oh? Tell me. You mean, we should torture and humiliate Xiao Chen?" Cheng Tianqiu listened to Cheng Zhongming's words and was a little interested. Cheng Zhongfan was also stunned. He looked at Cheng Zhongming with some surprise. Cheng Zhongming and Xiaofan were sworn brothers. With this relationship, it was destined that Cheng Zhongming should be biased towards Xiaochen. However, how could he make such a suggestion? Could it be that Cheng Zhongming was also angry with Xiaofan? Chapter 15. However, Cheng Zhongfan didn't say anything. Instead, he waited to see what would happen. "Father, I have a good idea to torture and humiliate Xiaochen." Cheng Zhongming said, "Think about it. If a young master who used to be high and mighty becomes a follower or servant, what would it feel like?" "Servant? Are you saying that you sold him as a slave?" Cheng Tianqiu didn't quite understand what Cheng Zhongming meant. "If you sell him, we won't be able to see it. Who knows if the Xiao family will buy him back?" "Of course not," Cheng Zhongming said and sneered. "What if he becomes Menjing's servant? A young master who used to be high and mighty in the Xiao family, Menjing's fiancé, has now become Menjing's servant. What a huge drop. Even normal people can't stand it, let alone Xiaochen, that foppish young master. This will probably make him feel worse than killing him." "Oh. What you said is quite interesting. But will Xiaochen be willing? I think he would rather die than do it, right?" Cheng Tianqiu nodded in agreement. Indeed, he also knew that these young masters from aristocratic families cared the most about their reputation, especially a foppish young master like Xiaochen. Now, he had changed from a young master and Menjing's fiancé to Menjing's servant. This was equivalent to slapping him in the face. This would make him feel worse than killing him. Not willing? As far as I know, he's penniless right now. As long as I use a few tricks and let the school pick on him, I'll charge him some fees. If Xiaochen can't afford it, he'll be expelled. At that time, he won't even have a place to live. If he's unwilling and wants to live, then he'll be at my mercy." A sinister smile flashed across Cheng Zhongming's face. "Good, this is a good idea." Cheng Tianqiu agreed. "Then it's settled. This drop is enough for that little bastard Xiaochen to suffer. The more he feels, the more I can vent my anger. Father, then I will implement it." Cheng Zhongming nodded and said calmly. Cheng Zhongfan stood at the side and didn't speak. However, in his mind, he was thinking about the pros and cons of this matter. Logically speaking, Cheng Zhongming shouldn't be so sinister. Wasn't this putting Xiaochen to death? With Xiaochen's foppish character, even if he could bear it at the beginning, after a long time, wouldn't it be suicide if he was ordered around as a servant? Could it be that Cheng Zhongming really wanted to put Xiaochen to death? Cheng Zhongming went straight out of the council hall and went to work. It had to be said that the Cheng family had great power in Songning City. When Xiaochen just had his morning class, he received a notice from the school. Within today, he had to pay a sponsorship fee of 1 million. The reason was that Xiaochen scored the last place in the whole school in the final exam last semester. If it was in the past, naturally, no one would find trouble with Xiaochen because of such a small matter. He was the young master of the Xiao family. Not to mention that he scored the last place in the exam. Even if he didn't take the exam, what could the school say? But now it was different. The school clearly wanted to find trouble with Xiaochen. Moreover, if he didn't pay the fee before school ended, then Xiaochen would be expelled honorably. After learning this news, Xiaochen's face was a little gloomy. It was true that he wanted to transfer to another school, but before he could get the transfer fee, the school asked him to pay the sponsorship fee first. "Boss, don't take it to heart. Isn't it just 1 million? I'll help you settle it." Zhu Yingxiong didn't care. With the strength of the Zhu family, 1 million was nothing at all. In fact, for the previous Xiaochen, 1 million was nothing. One of Xiaochen's sports cars was worth tens of millions. This 1 million was just a drop in the bucket. However, When Zhu Yingxiong called his father's phone and learned that his source of income was also blocked, he was suddenly dumbfounded. Although it was true that the Zhu family's ancestors supported Zhu Yingxiong, the Qing family clearly wanted to mess with Xiao Chen. Zhu Yingxiong's father, Zhu Qifu, didn't have the courage of the ancestors. He didn't dare to help Xiao Chen at this juncture. It was fine that Zhu Yingxiong and Xiao Chen were close. That could be avoided with the friendship between the younger generation. But it was different if they wanted to take money out. Boss. My father froze my source of income. Damn, it's really killing me. After learning the news, Zhu Yingxiong was a little depressed and embarrassed to tell Xiao Chen. It's okay. Xiao Chen shook his head. It was obvious that the Qing family wanted to mess with him. Even if Zhu Yingxiong took out the money, he believed that the Qing family could make up 100 reasons to let the school expel him. This was not a matter of money at all. It's okay to drop out of school. We are still brothers. Take care of Ku Er for me. Xiao Chen patted Zhu Yingxiong's shoulder and sighed slightly. Without saying anything more, he stood up and walked out of the classroom. Boss, don't worry. As long as she is here, I will be here. I won't let anyone bully her. Zhu Yingxiong patted his chest and promised. For the current Zhu Yingxiong, this kind of thing was as easy as lifting a finger. As long as he spread the word, no one in the school would dare to touch Kerlin. Even Chao Yuliang and Chen Jinpeng wouldn't dare. They dared to touch Xiao Chen because of the Qing family's attitude. But because of Kerlin, they didn't need to fight with Zhu Yingxiong to death. Wasn't that stupid? Just protect her secretly. She is a stubborn and strong girl. She has her own persistence. Xiao Chen smiled at Zhu Yingxiong and strode to the classroom door. After listening to Xiao Chen's words, Zhu Yingxiong was slightly stunned. Such philosophical words didn't sound like something Xiao Chen would say. Could it be that the adversity produced the talented? After this incident, did Xiao Chen become more profound? Xiao Chen didn't care about how Zhu Yingxiong looked at him and went straight out of the classroom. To be honest, in this school, the only people worthy of Xiao Chen's nostalgia were Zhu Yingxiong and Kerlin. Miss Cheng Menjing, Xiao Chen thought that he wouldn't have anything to do with her in the future. As for Shen Jingxian, she was just a beautiful girl that Xiao Chen pursued in order to show off. Xiao Chen was very clear that Shen Jingxian would never like a playboy young master like him. However, the only thing Xiao Chen could rely on now was the Elder Heaven Ancestor. With the cultivation formula taught by the Elder Heaven Ancestor and the money given to him by the Miss, it shouldn't be a problem to hold on for a while. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen's mood wasn't as bad as before. He quickly walked in the direction of the dormitory. In the dormitory, Xiao Chen still had some of his own clothes, which were bought before and placed there casually. He hadn't worn them yet. These clothes were nothing to Xiao Chen in the past, but now that Xiao Chen had no source of income, he would save as much as he could. He was going to take these clothes away. However, on the way to the dormitory, Xiao Chen was stopped by a car in front of him. Chapter 16. A car that could enter the campus was definitely not ordinary. Xiao Chen stopped and quietly looked at the car in front of him. He wanted to find some clues from the car, but the car's glass was covered with a dark film. Xiao Chen didn't know who was in the car. Bad intentions? Or? The car door opened, and a middle-aged man in a white robe got out of the car. This person was naturally Cheng Zhongming. Uncle Cheng? After Xiao Chen saw the person in the car, he couldn't help but be slightly surprised. He didn't expect that the person who got out of the car was actually Cheng Zhongming, Miss Cheng Menjing's father. Xiao Chen, it seems that you have been expelled from the school and have nowhere to go, right? After Cheng Zhongming finished speaking, he didn't give Xiao Chen a chance to speak. Instead, he made a long story short. Now, I will give you a chance to survive. I am going to transfer Menjing to Songning Second High School. However, she lacks a follower by her side, which is a servant. Are you interested in going with her? Xiao Chen was stunned. He didn't expect Cheng Zhongming to give him such a chance. Whether it was a servant or not, Xiao Chen didn't care. What Xiao Chen cared about was that they could transfer to another school together. Moreover, there was actually a place for them to live. This was practically something that Xiao Chen could only dream about in the past. It seems that the school expelled me because of Uncle Cheng. Xiao Chen didn't answer Cheng Zhongming's words, but asked. Even if Xiao Chen didn't want to hide it from Cheng Zhongming, the walls had ears. Xiao Chen didn't want to change too much. Only a good-for-nothing playboy would live longer. Xiao Chen, you also know that Uncle Cheng can't help it. Cheng Zhongming was slightly taken aback. He was a little surprised that Xiao Chen was able to guess it. However, after thinking about it, the Cheng clan was the only one targeting him at the moment, and he had coincidentally appeared here to say these words. No matter how useless Xiao Chen was, he should be able to figure out the crux of the matter. Then, are you giving me charity again? Or do you want to humiliate me? Xiao Chen's tone was cold. He shouted at Cheng Zhongming, I thought that you are my father's sworn brother. You are no different from my biological uncle, but my biological second uncle is no different from you. Are you here to laugh at me? However, in Xiao Chen's heart, he secretly said, Uncle Cheng, I'm sorry. I know you are doing this for my own good. You want to find an excuse for me to survive, but I can't thank you. At least, before Xiao Chen had enough strength, it was impossible to expose his rational side. That would only make him die faster. Xiao Chen. Cheng Zhongming smiled bitterly. He didn't know what to say as he looked at the angry Xiao Chen. Yes, he was actually very self-blaming. He didn't know whether his sworn brother was dead or alive, but he couldn't take care of his son. There were people on the school field. This scene was also seen by some observant people. But a bad life is better than a good death. I really have to thank Uncle Cheng. Xiao Chen fiercely spat out these few words. The current Xiao Chen had the awkwardness of a hero being stumped by a penny. This was completely in line with his character in the past. After the rage, there was a deep helplessness. Xiao Chen had no way out. He could only give in. Then, get in the car. Cheng Zhongming sighed and said to Xiao Chen. So, Xiao Chen got in Cheng Zhongming's car under a group of mocking eyes. Cheng Zhongming drove his own car and didn't bring a driver. There were some things that he couldn't do in the open. Although Xiao Chen's previous reaction made Cheng Zhongming very uncomfortable and he couldn't explain it, if Xiao Chen's performance was passed to his father's ears, his plan would succeed. However, Xiao Chen's irritable playboy character made Cheng Zhongming a little worried. The help he provided was only in secret. But how would Xiao Chen face the future? Uncle Cheng, thank you. After Xiao Chen got in the car, he restored his calm expression. At present, it seemed that Cheng Zhongming was a trustworthy person. Xiao Chen wasn't stupid. Cheng Zhongming's approach wasn't to humiliate him, but to help him. Cheng Zhongming was thinking about it. He was shocked by Xiao Chen's words. He turned his head and looked at Xiao Chen. His eyes were full of disbelief. Xiao Chen, who was blushing with me just now, actually became a plain thank you after getting in the car. Uncle Cheng, in the past 2 days, I've thought through some things. I've gotten over it and understood some things. Although Cheng Zhongming was trustworthy, Xiao Chen didn't hide anything from him. Just now, I shouted at you just for survival. You know, Cheng Zhongming's eyes focused and looked at Xiao Chen in disbelief. Cheng Zhongfan sent someone to follow him not far away. With Cheng Zhongming's strength, he could naturally feel it, but Cheng Zhongming didn't think that they could hear the conversation between him and Xiao Chen. He didn't expect Xiao Chen to be more careful than him. His father, Old Master Cheng, couldn't be at ease with Cheng Zhongming. After all, Cheng Zhongming and Xiaofan were sworn brothers in the past. He was afraid that he would let Xiaochen lose, so it was understandable for Cheng Zhongfan to send someone to follow him. However, what shocked Cheng Zhongming was that Xiaochen seemed to be more sensible than before. Xiaochen, you actually thought it through? Cheng Zhongming looked at Xiaochen strangely. He was extremely surprised. After encountering a huge change, if I'm still stupid, wouldn't I die miserably? Xiaochen smiled bitterly and said, yesterday, I was pushed off the cliff. What? That thing is true? Cheng Zhongming's pupils instantly became needle-like. He looked at Xiaochen in horror. The rumor is not false? Then you. I hung on a tree branch and climbed up again. Xiaochen naturally wouldn't tell the truth. Even if he trusted Cheng Zhongming, he couldn't talk about the existence of the elder heaven ancestor and the cultivators. So that's how it is. Then it's really scary but not dangerous. Cheng Zhongming frowned. Who wants to harm you? Our Cheng family, without my father's approval, wouldn't do such a thing. This is also the reason why I feel strange. Someone wants to kill me. If Uncle Cheng has any news, you can tell me. I'll be on guard. The purpose of Xiaochen saying so much was to let Cheng Zhongming help him find the mastermind behind the scenes. The onlooker sees the game more clearly. Maybe if he stood at Cheng Zhongming's height, he could see some clues. Moreover, it was also a great thing for Xiaochen to have someone on his side in the aristocratic family level. Okay, I will pay attention to this matter. Cheng Zhongming felt scared when he thought about it. If Xiaochen really died yesterday, how could he face Xiaofan? Moreover, even if it wasn't the Cheng family who did it, in the eyes of the outside world, Xiaochen committed suicide because he couldn't get over it. It was also related to the Cheng family. Chapter 17. As for Xiaochen's change, Cheng Zhongming didn't think too much about it. After any upheaval in the family, after experiencing life and death, there would be some changes. The saying that one who survives a disaster is bound to have good fortune later on wasn't just said casually. Therefore, Cheng Zhongming attributed all this to Xiaochen almost dying, and his mentality changed. However, this change was what Cheng Zhongming was happy to see. If Xiaochen really didn't understand the meaning of letting him be a servant, and instead fiercely refused with a playboy's temper, then it would be really difficult for him to deal with it. Thank you, Uncle Cheng. Xiaochen said, but I have a few sets of clothes in the dormitory. You also know my current financial situation, so I want to get them back. Okay, no problem. Cheng Zhongming nodded and said, I will drive you there. Cheng Zhongming's car drove in the direction of the dormitory building. Sure enough, after the car left, a young man with sunglasses took out his mobile phone and dialed a number. Brother Fan, Cheng Zhongming came to the school. According to what he said, he expelled Xiaochen. Sure enough, Xiaochen was furious. He almost quarreled with Cheng Zhongming, but maybe Xiaochen had no way out. In the end, he was forced to compromise and get in Cheng Zhongming's car. Oh. It seems that my big brother didn't do anything. Cheng Zhongfan was relieved after listening. Brother Fan, should I continue to follow them now? The sunglasses man asked carefully. There's no need. He's just a piece of trash. Let him fend for himself. Don't worry about him. Someone else will go and kill him. Cheng Zhongfan snorted disdainfully. Come back. Yes, Brother Fan. The sunglasses man nodded. After Cheng Zhongfan hung up the phone, he quickly went to report to Old Master Cheng. Of course, if it weren't for Old Master Cheng's instructions, he wouldn't have sent people to follow Cheng Zhongming so blatantly. Father, Big Brother went to Xiaochen's school and expelled Xiaochen. Then he found Xiaochen and proposed to make Xiaochen his servant. Xiaochen quarreled with him, but in the end, he held back his anger and got into Big Brother's car. Cheng Xiaofan told Cheng Tianqiu the story in a simple and clear manner. Oh. That was great. His father killed my son. I want his son to live a life worse than death. Cheng Tianqiu nodded and said angrily. Xiaochen packed up his clothes and glanced at his dormitory. This dormitory made him somewhat nostalgic. It wasn't because he had lived here for a long time. Speaking of which, the real impression he had was last night. But it was this night that made Xiaochen go from a trash to an extremely powerful high-end profession of cultivator. Looking at the cracked wall, Xiaochen shook his head, picked up his clothes, and quickly went downstairs. However, when Xiaochen was just about to get in the car, he heard the quarrel in the car. Dad, why did you let Xiaochen be my servant? You even let us live together? Cheng Menjing didn't expect that her father suddenly called her out of the classroom. After getting in the car, he made two proposals that made her collapse: transfer schools. Live together with Xiaochen. Let's forget about transferring schools, but let a grown man live together with me. Is this considered cohabitation? Ahem. Menjing, I didn't ask you to live together. Do you understand? It's very popular now to share a room with a flight attendant or the campus belle. He and you are in separate rooms. He just takes care of you in your studies and daily life. Cheng Zhongming explained. But, is there a difference? Cheng Menjing was going crazy. Let my ex-fiancé be my servant? Those who don't know will think that I'm still in love. How do you want me to face others in the future? Won't others laugh at me to death? Menjing. Cheng Zhongming's tone suddenly became serious. Something happened to your uncle Xiaofan. Xiaochen is his only son. I'm closer to him than a real brother. Xiaochen is no different from my son. Now that the Cheng family broke off the engagement and let the Xiao family kick him out of the house, I can't stop it. I can only provide some help to him in a cover-up situation, you mean? Cheng Menjing wasn't stupid. She was scared before, but after listening to her father's explanation, she immediately understood what her father meant. On the surface, it seemed that the Cheng family was messing with Xiaochen, turning him from a superior young master to a servant. But in fact, Cheng Zhongming was providing a living environment for Xiaochen. Yes, Menjing, Dad knows that you are a kind girl. You don't want your uncle Xiao to be sad, right? Asked Cheng Zhongming. All right. Cheng Menjing nodded her head in agreement, but in her heart, she still held a grudge against Xiaochen. In the past, I was his fiancé, and he actually chased after the commoner school belle in front of me, and chased after my bestie, Shen Jingxian. Now that he has fallen into my hands, watch how I deal with him. Miss Cheng agreed to her father's proposal. She had the face of Xiaofeng, and she also wanted to retaliate against Xiaochen. Women were very vengeful. But, it can't be just me and Xiaochen living together, right? Miss Cheng was a little scared. Although Xiaochen was now down and out, and he was her servant, with Xiaochen's previous bad reputation, what if he got aroused in the middle of the night and pushed her down? I'm going to rent a villa for you near the new school. Of course, it is also a shared house. There are other tenants in it. So, it doesn't matter, right? Cheng Zhongming also considered this. Although he didn't mind his daughter being pushed down by Xiaochen, in this situation, if Xiaochen dared to do so, he would definitely die. Although his daughter was his, the decision was made by old Master Cheng. Okay. Miss Cheng breathed a sigh of relief. Xiaochen stood outside the car. He was a little dumbfounded. Is my reputation so bad? It seems that I am still a virgin, right? Well, but even Miss Cheng was deceived. It seems that my acting is really good. In fact, Cheng Zhongming had long noticed Xiaochen, but Xiaochen was outside the car. Cheng Zhongming didn't think that he could hear the conversation inside the car. He thought that Xiaochen saw Cheng Menjing got in the car first, so he deliberately didn't get in, leaving Cheng Zhongming and Cheng Menjing space to talk. With Cheng Zhongming's level of internal energy, if he wanted to hear the words inside and outside the car clearly, he couldn't not be close. This was because the car was modified to be soundproof, and Xiao Chen was an ordinary person who couldn't even cultivate internal energy. It was even more impossible for him to hear what was said inside the car. However, Xiao Chen heard it, and even Xiao Chen himself was a little shocked. Aren't you shocked? Smart eyes and ears, this is also the ability of a cultivator. When your divine sense, that is, your spiritual force is strong enough to a certain extent, not only can you affect other people's thoughts like me, but you can also hear other people's conversations from far away. Elder Heaven Ancestor's voice sounded in Xiao Chen's ear. I say, Elder Heaven Ancestor, you are addicted to peeping at my thoughts. Xiao Chen was a little speechless. I'm afraid that Elder Heaven Ancestor also knew that he was a virgin. I can't help it. I am also in your body. I know what you are thinking. Elder Heaven Ancestor pretended to be helpless, but his shameless tone betrayed him. He certainly didn't want to listen. Then why can't I hear your thoughts? Xiao Chen felt that it was a little unfair. You can, when your strength is stronger than mine, you can. Elder Heaven Ancestor said. But, you have to wait. Xiao Chen rolled his eyes, too lazy to pay attention to this old pervert. Chapter 18. At this time, the door opened. Cheng Zhongming waved to Xiao Chen and said to him, Xiao Chen, get in the car. Xiao Chen opened the back door, got in the car, and sat next to Cheng Menjing. This action immediately made eldest young mistress Cheng frown. It was true that she sympathized with Xiao Chen, but he shouldn't push his luck. Xiao Chen, you sit in the front. Miss Cheng moved her body to the side. Although Xiao Chen was her ex-fiancé, they didn't have any intimate actions before. Xiao Chen was busy pursuing the commoner campus belle and the popular goddess Shen Jingxian. How could he have time to care about his fiancée? I'm afraid that Xiao Chen thought that I would be his sooner or later, and he didn't need to pursue me. Although Cheng Menjing didn't care about Xiao Chen's pursuit, every time she thought of this scene, she was angry. Didn't you not pursue me before? Don't try to get close to me now. Want to take advantage of me? No way. If you have the ability, go and find Ke Lin and Shen Jingxian. Okay, Menjing. Cheng Zhongming frowned slightly. Now he already felt sorry for Xiaofan and Xiao Chen. If Cheng Menjing quarreled with Xiao Chen because of this small matter, he couldn't bear it. It's okay. I'll sit in the front. Xiao Chen didn't care. He sat in the car before, and he didn't think much. He just thought that it was inconvenient to sit in the front with a pile of clothes. He put the clothes in the back seat, then got off and sat in the front passenger seat. The scene of Xiao Chen being driven out of the car by Miss Cheng would probably be spread by the people who saw it. This was also the goal that Xiao Chen wanted to achieve. The more he was down, the happier some people would be. The school that Xiao Chen and Cheng Menjing were going to transfer to was Songning No. 2 Senior High School, and their previous school was Songning No. 1 Senior High School. These two schools were invested by the Shen family and were jointly run in Songning City. They were the best schools. Even if Cheng Zhongming transferred to another school, it was impossible for him to find a random one. Of course, the purpose of the transfer was actually very obvious. Humiliating Xiao Chen was just to let Xiao Chen change his environment. Although Xiao Chen was famous, it was only in Songning No. 1 Senior High School. There were people who heard that Xiao Chen was a playboy, but not many knew the name Chen. There were so many children from aristocratic families. Who had the time to remember their names? Generally, it was first young Master Chen, second young Master Chen, and Chen Jinpeng was second young Master Chen. It had to be said that Cheng Zhongming's men were very efficient. There was no need for Cheng Zhongming to show up. Before his car arrived at Songning No. 2 Senior High School, the transfer procedures had been completed, and the house had been rented. This was a villa, and the owner had gone abroad. However, villas near the school district were more difficult to sell. Even rich people rarely bought luxurious villas near the school district. They rented one and left after school. Who would want to stay here all year round? Therefore, this villa wasn't sold at the beginning, so it was rented out. Cheng Zhongming wanted to find a co-tenant, and this villa just met the requirements. There was already a tenant in this house, and there were 4 empty rooms. However, Cheng Zhongming's men paid the remaining rent in one go. In Cheng Zhongming's view, having one tenant was enough. It would be noisy if there were more. Moreover, the most important thing was that this tenant was a female tenant, which made Cheng Menjing very satisfied. If there were 2 men in the villa, she would feel even more unsafe. Cheng Zhongming drove the car to the door of the villa and stopped. A girl in a black leather coat was squatting in the garden of the villa's courtyard, fiddling with something. When she saw the car stop, she raised her head and was slightly surprised. Could it be that a new tenant came? One had to know that the rent of this villa was not low. Even if it was 1/5 of the rent, it was still a very high price. With this price, one could rent a very good 2-bedroom and 1 living room nearby, so very few people would choose to share a room with others. What was wrong with a villa? No matter how luxurious it was, co-renting was not as comfortable as living alone. Many students rented houses nearby because they didn't like the noise in the dormitory. If it was a villa, it was just a big dormitory. What was the difference? Therefore, Yi Xiaoye was very puzzled. Moreover, looking at this car, it should be a Jaguar, which was relatively low-key and luxurious. Why would a person who drove such a car come to rent a house? Could it be a driver? When Yi Xiaoye was observing Cheng Zhongming's car, Xiao Chen and Cheng Menjing were also observing Yi Xiaoye. Yi Xiaoye's clothes were very cool. The black leather tight-fitting clothes showed off her exquisite figure, but it was hard for Xiao Chen to imagine that such a cool girl would be interested in flowers and plants. Seeing that she was holding a sprinkler in her hand, it was obvious that she was watering the flowers and plants. This made Xiao Chen feel even more amazed. This girl was really special. You are, new tenants? Yi Xiaoye put down the kettle in her hand, stood up, and looked at Xiao Chen and others who got off the car. Yes, my name is Cheng Menjing. Do you also live here? Miss Cheng wanted to see Yi Xiaoye's character from her, but it was difficult. This girl's clothes and behavior were incompatible. Yi Xiaoye nodded and said, Yi Xiaoye, I have lived here for half a month. The room on the left upstairs is mine. You can choose the other rooms. Also, don't touch the things in the flower garden. Yi Xiaoye's voice was very cold, without any emotion. It sounded like this person was very indifferent. This feeling of being 1,000 miles away made Miss Cheng a little uncomfortable. In any case, we will live together in the future. What kind of attitude is this? Don't touch the flower garden. Who cares? I am not a gardener. However, Miss Cheng's unyielding character made her say, the room doesn't matter. You came here first, so of course we won't haggle over it. However, this flower garden is a public facility. Why are you occupying it? Xiao Chen, plant some flowers and plants for me tomorrow. You can also be a gardener. Oh. Xiao Chen wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. He didn't expect Miss Cheng to be a stingy person. It seemed that he would have a hard time in the future. This girl wouldn't take revenge on him for all the things he did to her in the past, would she? Yi Xiaoye was angered by Cheng Menjing's words, but she couldn't say anything to refute. Miss Cheng was right. Since they were all tenants of the villa, the flower garden was naturally public. You can't occupy it yourself, right? But, how many of the people who actually rented here like to play with flowers and plants? The reason why Yi Xiaoya didn't rent an apartment but a villa was that she valued the private flower garden under the villa. There was no such private flower garden in the apartment. Chapter 19. What about me? This villa is rented to 5 people. I paid 4/5 of the rent. This parterre only has 1/5 of your space. You do as you see fit. Miss Cheng said arrogantly, and then she ignored Yi Xiaoya's pretty face that had turned green. She pointed to the luggage in the car and said to Xiao Chen, take my luggage upstairs. I want to live upstairs, too. Yi Xiaoya listened to Cheng Menjing's last sentence, and she was even angrier. Since you paid 4/5 of the rent, the remaining 4 guest rooms are yours. There are 2 rooms downstairs. Why do you want to live upstairs? Do you want to make life difficult for me? However, since she was a nouveau riche, Yi Xiaoya could only be angry. She snorted and continued to squat in front of the parterre to play with her flowers and plants. Of course, the area of the entire parterre was not small. Yi Xiaoya occupied less than 1/5 of the area, but she was angry. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, had the awareness of being a servant. He couldn't be bothered to explain anything to the young mistress. She had helped him transfer schools and provided him with a place to stay. This was something that Xiao Chen could only dream of. Hence, he picked up his luggage and followed the young mistress upstairs. Cheng Menjing was actually not an unruly and overbearing person, but this Yi Xiaoya was irritating enough. If she talked to the miss nicely, the miss wouldn't care about her parterre. However, Yi Xiaoya's indifferent attitude made the miss very unhappy, so she naturally targeted her. Cheng Zhongming sat in the car and could only smile bitterly. He originally thought that Cheng Menjing would be very happy to find a villa with a female tenant. She would also have a playmate at ordinary times, but he didn't expect that they would quarrel when they just arrived at the villa. What should I do in the future? But Cheng Zhongming had no choice. When he just wanted to lock the car and go upstairs, he heard Yi Xiaoya say to him, "Driver, drive the car to the garage behind the villa. This is not a parking place. Don't block my 1/5." Cheng Zhongming was speechless. I am the driver? However, Cheng Zhongming didn't care about it. He just said to Yi Xiaoya, I don't live here. I will leave soon. Oh. Yi Xiaoya nodded and ignored him. She continued to take care of the flowers and plants in the yard. Cheng Menjing chose the room on the far right of the villa. There was an empty room in the middle, which was separated from Yi Xiaoya's room. Although Miss Cheng wanted to annoy Yi Xiaoya, she didn't want to live next door to Yi Xiaoya. She was still angry. Xiao Chen put Cheng Menjing's luggage in her room and was about to go downstairs to see his room. He didn't expect that he was stopped by Cheng Menjing. You, wait. What's wrong? Xiao Chen turned around and looked at Cheng Menjing. He had to admit that Cheng Menjing's sweaty appearance at the moment was very attractive. Having such a fiancée was a great joy in life, but at the moment, she didn't belong to him. Xiao Chen also looked away. He didn't like women as much as he seemed on the surface. Xiao Chen, we have to set some rules in the future. Cheng Menjing felt that before living together with Xiao Chen. Oh, no, before living together, she must make some things clear. Oh, say it. Xiao Chen stopped. Now, Xiao Chen had to bow his head under the eaves. He lived in the house of the Mississippi. In front of the Mrs. Servant, whatever the Miss said was the law. Xiao Chen didn't care much. You, as a servant, have no salary. The Mrs.'s first sentence was shocking. No salary? It can't be, right? Xiao Chen was stunned. He followed Miss Cheng around just to get more money. It must be known that he didn't even have a source of living expenses. He didn't know how long the envelope of money yesterday could last. You have to pay rent to live here, right? So, your salary can be used to pay off the debt. Miss Cheng looked at Xiao Chen's stunned expression and said proudly. Cheng Menjing thought, humph humph, didn't you ignore me in the past? Now that I'm a queen, I can do whatever I want. Do you dare to resist? Oh. Xiao Chen thought it was reasonable. Indeed, she provided him with a place to live and helped him transfer to another school. It was okay to exploit a little. In fact, to be honest, Xiao Chen didn't have much need for money. In the past, he spent lavishly, but that was just to disguise his image as a prodigal. What else? Xiao Chen's attitude made Miss Cheng very unhappy. Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you angry? If you are angry, then I can vent my anger. However, Xiao Chen's indifferent attitude made Miss Cheng feel like she was punching cotton. Your tuition fee and food expenses will be calculated separately. These money will be recorded in your account for the time being. I will reward you with some tips regularly. You can use the tips to pay off the debt. Cheng Menjing was angry, so she directly deprived Xiao Chen of his food and accommodation. How can a servant have to pay for their own food? Forget about the housing, he still has to pay for his food. This is worse than being a permanent laborer in ancient times. Oh. What else? Xiao Chen nodded. Anyway, it was recorded in his account. As long as she didn't chase him for the debt, it didn't matter. Not for the time being. I will talk about it when I remember. Miss Cheng was dumbfounded by Xiao Chen. She thought, has this guy's brain not figured it out yet? He doesn't have any concept of money, right? Being exploited like this, how can he not even say a word of rebuttal? Then I will go downstairs. Xiao Chen nodded and walked downstairs. Miss Cheng looked at Xiao Chen's back as he left and clenched her teeth. The more indifferent Xiao Chen was, the angrier she was. Cheng Menjing was so angry that she stomped her feet. She didn't have the mood to tidy up her clothes. She asked Cheng Zhongming, who just went upstairs, Dad, when are we going to school? Don't you need to tidy up your luggage? Originally, we are going tomorrow morning, but you can go today. Cheng Zhongming looked at Cheng Menjing, whose face was red. He was a little puzzled. What happened to my daughter? She seems to be angry with someone. Could it be Xiao Chen? I will let Xiao Chen tidy up for me when I come back. Miss Cheng thought of another way to punish Xiao Chen. Humph humph, in my luggage, there are some underwear. If you don't tidy them up, I will deduct your salary. If you tidy them up, I will say that you are a hooligan and continue to deduct your salary. Thinking of this, Miss Cheng's mood was a little better. Cheng Zhongming wanted to say that they were just going through the formalities with Xiao Chen. They didn't really treat him as a servant. However, when the words came to his mouth, Cheng Zhongming swallowed them again. It seemed that his daughter and Xiao Chen didn't seem to get along. If he said too much, it wouldn't be good to increase the conflict between them. Xiao Chen didn't have any clothes at all. However, even if he only had a few sets, each set of clothes was expensive and high-end. Even if he transferred to another school and started over, he was no longer the former Xiao Chen. It was better to be low-key. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.